Chapter 722. The thunderclouds that filled the air instantly shot out dense lightning, causing the audience to gasp in shock. This momentum, this strength. Did it really come from a young man, from a martial king? City Lord Han said solemnly, the young patriarch of the world-defying sacred sect will definitely become the leader of the new generation of the falling star continent. Just from the condensed lightning alone, he had already given a high evaluation. Is that so? Jun Changshao laughed. It might have been possible in the past, but there would be no future in the future. Because his disciple could let him understand what psychological shadow was. Buzz. When thousands of lightning bolts fell, the space below suddenly trembled. The 8 characters of Qian, Zhen, Kan, Zhen, Kun, Sun, Li, and Dui appeared in 8 areas. The 8 characters quickly rotated, and a flat smooth barrier suddenly appeared, covering the entire martial stage. This move was called Inverse the Universe. Back in the Death Valley, Yixingqian had used it to save Xiao Ziji. At that time, he was just a martial disciple, and it was extremely difficult for him to use it. Now that he had stepped into the martial king realm, not only was he skilled in using it, but he also had a whole new level of understanding. Dealing with trash. This martial skill was enough. Xiao! Xiao! Thousands of lightning bolts struck down. The strange thing was that this time, not only did they not bounce back, but they also merged into the barrier and disappeared. What's going on? It's like a spatial artifact, storing all the lightning bolts. Unbelievable. Not to mention the stunned audience, even City Lord Han and Wu Sheng saw such a strange move for the first time. How is this possible? Seeing his lightning bolts being absorbed into the barrier, Ao Wushuang's proud face was filled with disbelief. Shua! Yixingqian waved his finger lightly. The smooth barrier that was originally flat suddenly tilted. Seeing the mirror facing him, Ao Wushuang suddenly felt an ominous feeling in his heart. Not good, hiss all of a sudden, bolts of lightning shot out from the smooth barrier. Their power and momentum were exactly the same as the bolts of lightning that had descended just now. What a good move, paying others back in their own coin. Jun Changshao laughed. Boom! 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 The sound of explosions on the stage continued one after another. All the cultivators in the continent were dumbfounded when they saw the lightning gathering in the sky through the light screen. Absorbing all the lightning released by others and then using it to counterattack, this was simply too unconventional. Gradually, the lightning on the stage weakened, but the solid stone slab was still there. It was not affected in the slightest. However, Ao Wushuang, who was standing on top, was in a sorry state. The lightning that permeated his hair and the arrogance that seemed to be innate were greatly weakened by the violent explosions. A piece of trash. To think that he would end up in such a miserable state. Unforgivable, unforgivable. Ao Wushuang clenched his fists, and the thunder and lightning lingering on his arms became stronger again. The power of thunder that filled the surroundings gradually gathered into a giant, like an inviolable thunder god. Hiss hiss hiss. Thunder and lightning crazily collided with space, causing ear-piercing noises. It was like the sound of war drums and horns, as if thousands of soldiers and horses were galloping on the battlefield. This is, City Lord Han exclaimed, lightning sound physique. Oh. Jun Changshao asked, is this physique very strong? Very strong. City Lord Han said solemnly, there are thousands of physiques in the falling star continent, but the lightning sound physique is ranked in the top 10. Jun Changshao asked, how does it compare to the sacred flame physique? This, City Lord Han pondered for a moment and said, the sacred flame physique is the strongest physique of the fire element. In terms of level, the lightning sound physique is a little weaker. Then it's very ordinary, Jun Changshao said. City Lord Han was speechless. He actually thought that the top 10 physiques were very ordinary. Lightning sound physique. This is the lightning sound physique. The experts who knew about physiques also recognized it. For a moment, the hearts of the martial artists in the venue were greatly stirred. After all, this was one of the top physiques in the continent. Zhao Dezhuang, who had already been eliminated, saw Ao Wushuang activate the lightning sound physique and said with a burning gaze, "I really want to fight with him." Whoosh whoosh, on the stage, the power of thunder whizzed out, and the giant that condensed was like a thunder god that walked out of a pool of lightning. Trash! Ao Wushuang's black hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were about to split open as he said, "Bear the wrath of the thunder god, Pa." Before he could finish speaking, Yi Xingqian appeared in front of him. His palm, which was covered in spiritual power, directly grabbed his face and said, "Don't tarnish the word God." Boom! The entire fighting stage began to shake violently. Through the light screen, one could see that Yi Xingqian took a step forward and directly dragged Ao Wushuang's face and pressed it to the ground. Shwa! Boom! Shwa! Boom! The world-defying sacred sect's young patriarch's face was held, raised again and again, pressed down again and again, and the back of his head crazily and violently hit the stone slab. Whoosh whoosh! The giant that had gathered, its fists closed together and smashed down with a force of 10,000 kilograms, but just as it was about to land, Yi Xingqian suddenly turned his head and said with a cold gaze, "Scram!" Wang! The entire space suddenly rippled, and with the stage as the center, it spread out. The giant that was carrying power came to an abrupt stop, and then it collapsed into nothingness in front of everyone's eyes. The entire venue instantly quieted down. Boom! Boom! Ao Wushuang's head was still crazily hitting the ground. Su Xiaoma and the others, who were standing in the distance, suddenly felt heartache for the stone slab that had been hit from beginning to end. What happened? Why did the condensed thunder giant directly collapse? Everyone came back to their senses and their eyes were filled with astonishment. City Lord Han frowned. The moment Yi Xingqian said the word "scram," he captured an extremely terrifying aura, and an unprecedented fear rose in his heart. That feeling flashed by. City Lord Han was still unable to determine what kind of aura it was. This was the aura of a martial emperor. Although it only existed for a moment, it was definitely not something a martial king could contend against. Boom! Boom! Yi Xingqian grabbed Ao Wushuang's arrogant face and crazily bombarded the stone slab. The latter was instantly dizzy from the bombardment, and the psionic energy that had gathered in his arm gradually dissipated. The outcome has been decided. City Lord Han said. The world-defying sacred sect's young patriarch's physique had been broken, and now that it had suffered a crazy bombardment, it was equivalent to losing its ability to fight. Even so, Yi Xingqian's ravaging of this trash was not over. After bombarding it for a while, he used his other hand to pull his hair and ruthlessly hit his face against the stone slab. June Patriarch rubbing his face against the stone slab was just a beautiful wish of the author and the reader. Ao Wushuang was now using his face to measure whether the stone slab set up by dozens of array masters was sturdy or not. Very sturdy. After withstanding many impacts and friction, the stone slab was only stained with blood and did not show any dents or cracks. After a while, Yi Xingqian threw Ao Wushuang to the ground like a dead dog, stepped on his face with his right foot, and said, "Answer me, who is the trash?" The corner of everyone's mouth twitched. He had already been abused like this, yet he could still speak. That must be strange. The second-rate sacred sect's young patriarch had been abused so miserably in front of everyone. Now that he had been stepped on, it was even crueler than killing him. If it weren't for the rules, Ao Wushuang would have already become a corpse. Hoo-hoo! Suddenly, a terrifying wave of air gathered in the sky above the arena. Then, the entire space seemed to be torn apart by a giant hand. "Night Emperor, you are still alive." A pleasant voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Boom! Yi Xingqian stood rooted to the ground as if he had been struck by lightning. Then, he raised his head and looked at the crack in space with bloodshot eyes. Ling Yao. He shouted these two words in his heart. His anger reached its peak, and the veins on his face bulged. He seemed to have fallen into absolute madness. Since you have been reborn, why don't you live a normal life? The pleasant voice sounded again, but at the end, it was filled with endless murderous intent. Hoo-hoo, suddenly, from the torn space, a giant hand that seemed to come from the heavens pressed down. In front of this power, all living beings seemed to be insignificant. Yi Xingqian's pupils shrank, and a strong aura of death surged into his heart. He shouted angrily in his heart, Ling Yao, just you wait. Boom! The energy that seemed to come from the heavens pressed down on the arena with an inviolable force. Suddenly, clouds of dust rolled up. Chapter 723. When the palm print from the depths of the starry sky pressed down, the entire world seemed to have lost its color, and everyone seemed to have been frozen. Someone from the upper realm? He Wudi was shocked. Although his body could not move, his mind was still intact. He could feel the palm print pressing down, carrying with it an inviolable power from the upper realm. He Wudi was puzzled. How did this guy offend the people from the upper realm, to the point of tearing space to obliterate him? Could it be that he had fled here to seek refuge like himself? Sigh. He was discovered. There was no hope. He Wudi was helpless. If he still had his former cultivation base, even if he only recovered 10%, he could easily break this power. However, he could not even move now, and could only watch as his fellow disciple was suppressed. Speaking of which, the palm print pressed down and covered half of the arena. How could he not be worried? Because this power from the upper realm seemed to be incomparably huge, but in fact, it was only locked onto Yi Xingqian and would not affect anyone else. Ao Wushuang is quite pitiful. He Wudi thought to himself. Being stepped on by Yi Xingqian, he will definitely be implicated. No. At this moment, a force suddenly erupted from the spectator stand and rushed over at the fastest speed. He Wudi could still use a little bit of spiritual sense under the huge restraint, and instantly captured the patriarch standing in front of Yi Xingqian. His body was emitting an extremely strong aura, and his whole body was covered in steel-like armor. This strong pressure could not restrain him. Also, the force that erupted from the patriarch seemed to be stronger than the last time he abused the supreme elder of the extreme coldness palace. As expected. This guy had been hiding his strength well. However, he only revealed it at this juncture. Was he not despicable? Jun Changshao, who had just crushed the universal talisman and activated the defensive form of the armed wings, would definitely kick him to earth if he heard this disciple's thoughts. Yi Xingqian, who thought that he was going to die, saw the patriarch standing in front of him, and his expression froze. Xingqian. Jun Changshao stood in front of him. Facing the incoming palm print, he said, "With me here, no one can hurt you." This selfless love from a patriarch instantly made Yi Xingqian. Boom! The gigantic palm print ruthlessly pressed down on the fighting stage, instantly sweeping up a cloud of dust. When everything dissipated, a large palm print could be seen on a small half of the stage. Li Qingyang and the others in the distance were not affected. However, they were still frozen, as if time had stopped. Only He Wudi knew that those from the higher realms had restrictions. They couldn't casually take action in the lower realms unless they couldn't hold themselves back and use their divine abilities to seal everything. Looking down from above, one could see that there was an intact piece of ground in the center of the palm print that was not destroyed. Yi Xingqian stood there in a daze. Patriarch, fully equipped with steel armor, gradually emerged from the dust. He crossed his arms and bared his teeth. That was a really fucking powerful. Who are you? A pleasant voice sounded in his ears. Jun Changshao did not answer this question. Instead, he looked at the crack in the sky and said coldly, "I'll take this palm on behalf of my disciple. He'll definitely return it 100 times over in the future." 100 times over? The pleasant voice sounded. Do you think he's qualified? Patriarch. At this moment, He Wudi said telepathically, the person who attacked must be from the upper realms. There are rules in the upper realms. You can't disturb the lower realms. Quickly use it to deter them. He did not hear the pleasant voice, but he was 100% sure that the person who attacked was from the upper realms. If he used the rules to suppress them now, he should be able to reverse the situation. Powerhouses from the upper realms were experienced. Jun Changxiao's brain worked very quickly. He said lightly, this is the lower realms. If you attack without permission, aren't you afraid of disturbing the order of heaven and earth and being punished by the rules? The pleasant voice sounded slowly. It was as if she was deep in thought and entangled. After a while, a gentle voice sounded in Yixingqian's ears. Seeing that you and I were once in love, I hope you can behave yourself and be an ordinary person in the lower realms. The crack in the sky suddenly began to heal. In the blink of an eye, it returned to its original state. It was as if nothing had happened. The strong pressure in the venue also gradually dissipated. Phew! Jun Changxiao retracted his armed wings. His hands trembled violently as he took a deep breath. The talisman of heaven and earth and the armed wings' defensive form could only allow him to barely withstand the palm print. If it came again, he would definitely die. However, who was that pleasant voice? Why would it condense such a strong palm print to kill Yixingqian? The system said, do you still need to think? It must be his enemy from his previous life. If that's the case. Jun Changxiao said to himself, this disciple of mine is not only a reincarnated powerhouse, but also a powerhouse from the upper realms. That's right. The system vowed solemnly. It was strange to say that when the crack in space disappeared, even the sunken palm print disappeared, and the destroyed stage was restored. It was as if time had turned back to the scene when Yixingqian had just beaten up Ao Wushuang. But what couldn't go back was Jun Changxiao's dead talisman of heaven and earth. Jun Patriarch. At this moment, City Lord Han collapsed and said, when did you run down there? At that moment, Jun Changxiao discovered that the audience was all looking at him. They didn't seem to remember what had just happened. Even the originally pitch-black projection screen had returned to normal, and his heroic and extraordinary figure appeared on it. Shua! He had an idea. He pulled out the banner again and shouted, opportunity knocks but once, it won't come again. Jun Changxiao used his actions to tell everyone that he had appeared on the stage out of the blue just to advertise his name. Nonsense! City Lord Han scolded, don't interfere with the competition, hurry up and come up. All right. Jun Changxiao put away the banner. However, before he left, he glanced at the half-dead Ao Wushuang and said, that's enough. Don't kill him. Bang! Yixingqian kicked Ao Wushuang off the stage and said indifferently, trash. He was trying to control his emotions and pretend that he was still fighting, but indescribable pain came from his heart. Seeing that you and I were once in love, I hope you can behave yourself and be an ordinary person in the lower realm. A pleasant voice came into Yixingqian's ears, and it was like a needle fiercely stabbing into his heart. It was hard for him, who was proud and aloof, to accept the fact that he was being treated like charity. So what? Not to mention him now, even Night Emperor at his peak was just an ant in front of a high and mighty expert. He was unwilling. He was really unwilling. Senior Brother Yi. He Wudi said telepathically, it's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. He thought that Yixingqian was also from the upper realm, and suddenly felt that they were in the same boat. That's right. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Phew. Yixingqian let out a long breath and thought to himself, kill me once and give me a palm. Just like the patriarch said, I'll return it to you 100 times over. Thinking of this, he looked at Jun Changxiao who was talking cheerfully with City Lord Han, and his eyes flashed with a complicated look. When the terrifying palm pressed down, he actually blocked in front of him. If he died, Wouldn't he be worried that the sect of all times would scatter? Or, was the life of his disciple so important to him that he couldn't allow others to hurt him? When Jun Changshao led a large group of disciples to attack the extreme coldness palace, Yi Xingqian thought about how such a reckless action could achieve great things in the future. Until the moment of life and death, he seemed to have understood a lot. Junior brother Yi. Su Xiaoma smiled and said, "Do you want to continue fighting?" Yi Xingqian looked at him, looked at Li Qingyang and the others, and secretly said, "This patriarch, these fellow disciples, are really annoying." Schwa. Turning around, he pointed to the disciples of the world-defying sacred sect, and said, "Trash, come and fight." Through the clouds, through the sky, in that seemingly real yet illusory palace, a graceful figure lazily leaned on the throne and whispered, with his personality, "It's really strange that he can condescend to stay in the sect." "Master." A black-clothed man appeared and said, "The people of the realm hall ask you to explain why you took action without permission in the lower realms. You noticed it so quickly." The graceful figure murmured, "Fortunately, I didn't make a move again, otherwise I would have been deliberately made difficult by a group of old antiques." Chapter 724. Because of some kind of power, the audience forgot about the spatial tear. However, He Wudi remembered, Yi Xingqian remembered, and Jun Changshao also remembered. One of the first two had his flesh pierced through, while the other was directly targeted, which could still be explained. Why was Jun Changshao more special than the others? Was it because of his thick skin that the pressure from the upper realm could not penetrate? Not to mention, he could ignore the restraints and directly activate the armed wings defense to rush over. Even if he activated the talisman of heaven and earth and his cultivation soared to an extremely high level, City Lord Han, who was also Wu Sheng, was still frozen and did not notice anything strange. "Maybe I'm handsome." Jun Changshao gave himself an impeccable explanation. The system said, "Aren't you tired?" Jun Changshao was speechless. "Of course I'm tired, but the battle of dragons and tigers is not over yet, I have to hold on." Resisting the palm from the upper realm consumed nearly 90% of his psionic energy. Although he had the support of the talisman of heaven and earth, he was only a small step away from exhaustion. And the other party did not really use his full strength, just bombarding Yi Xingqian casually. Otherwise, with Jun Changshao's fragile body, he would have been crushed into powder. "The host is so brave." The system said in admiration, "You dared to rush over in that situation just now." Thinking about it, its heart was still thumping, although it did not have a heart. "You don't understand." Jun Changshao said, "This is the love that only humans have." He had always regarded the sect as his home and himself as his parent. When his child was in danger, would the parent just sit by and do nothing? "I can't understand your human love." The system said, "But I know that if the host continues to play like this, sooner or later, he will die." "It doesn't matter." Jun Changshao shrugged, "Anyway, if I die, you will die too. At the end of the day, I can drag someone down with me, so I won't be lonely on the road to hell." Although he was joking, his expression became more and more serious. The power from the upper realm was too strong. With his current strength, he could not resist at all. If a similar situation happened in the future, would he have to watch his disciple be obliterated? No. Jun Changshao thought to himself, "Dragon and tiger battle for supremacy is over, I must work hard to cultivate." The sudden appearance of the power from the upper realm gave him a strong sense of crisis. Only by becoming stronger could he be a good parent. Yi Xingqian was also deep in thought. Why did that woman suddenly appear? Could it be that I accidentally revealed my martial emperor aura and she caught it? Also, the first thing she said was, "You're still alive." This, as expected, meant that the woman should have known that he wasn't dead, or that he had been reborn. Could it be that breaking through the void and ascending to the upper realm had given her some kind of powerful magical power that allowed her to deduce that his soul had not been completely annihilated? Schwa. At this time, the world-defying sacred sect disciple took the opportunity to attack, condensing a powerful fist print. Pa! Yixingchen raised his hand to catch it and crush it. Immediately after, he rushed in front of his opponent and pressed a hand on his face, smashing him to the ground. He said angrily, "I can't figure it out." Boom. "I don't understand." Boom. "I can't figure it out." A moment later, the disciple was beaten black and blue, and then fell in front of a group of fellow disciples. Without Ao Wushuang, the world-defying sacred sect had no hope, so the next disciples who came out to fight could not escape being beaten by Yixingchen. There is no suspense. The elders of the various sects shook their heads. A fifth-rate sect, winning the championship of the Dragon-Tiger battle, who would have thought of such a thing? Heavenly Mandate Imperial City, Yi Tianxing, who was lying on the bed, with Yixingchen beating his opponent down again and again, his whole face was extremely red, and his breathing became rapid. "Quick! Give the medicine," Elder Zhen urged. Elder Zhou took out 2 pill bottles, shook them helplessly, and said, "It's all eaten. Why didn't you prepare more?" In the state of the master, no matter how much medicine he takes, he can't suppress it. Put on. The sound of falling came from the light screen again, and another world-defying sacred sect disciple was beaten out. Yi Tianxing clutched his chest, and his breathing suddenly stopped, as if he was about to be out of breath, and he was about to have a heart attack. "Let's do it." Elder Zhou and Elder Zhen looked at each other, and directly gathered psionic power in their palms, and hit Yi Tianxing's neck hard. The other party was not prepared at all, and immediately stretched out his leg, and fainted. The 11th. The 12th. In the cities of southwest Yangzhou, every time Yixingchen beat an opponent, the warriors would shout in unison, and every inch of their hair would stand up in excitement. Boom! In the end, under Yixingchen's bombardment, the last world-defying sacred sect disciple fell off the stage with a bloody nose and a swollen face. 1. The sect that our southwest Yangzhou sent is the champion. Deafening shouts suddenly came from the entire southwest Yangzhou. How many people hugged each other, how many people cried on the spot, how many people shouted in unison that they were proud of the sect that they were proud of. The sect of all times is mighty, senior brother is mighty. In the sect of all times, more than 10,000 disciples also cheered loudly after being suppressed for a long time. The pride on their faces were not inferior to any of the southwest Yangzhou martial artists. On this day, the entire southwest Yangzhou was destined to be in a carnival. World-defying sacred sect eliminated, champion, City Lord Han shouted loudly, the sect of all times. The corner of Jun Chengxiao's mouth twitched. It was already over, and he was still pressing down on him. Damn! If it wasn't for the fact that my psionic power was exhausted, with my current realm, I would have bound you in a minute and then flew up to advertise. Babies. Looking at his group of cute disciples with a gratified face, Jun Chengxiao said to the group, "Thank you for your hard work." Su Xiaoma hugged Li Fei, and a smile appeared on his face. The other disciples looked at the patriarch, and felt the respectful gazes from everyone present. At this moment, they had the right to enjoy the respect of the world. The lens of the projection array also gave these victors a close-up shot, but it was all controlled on their faces. Because if it was any further, the advertising slogan on their bodies would be revealed. After the competition, there was the award ceremony. According to the previous rules, the champion of the Dragon-Tiger hegemony would receive 10,000 spirit stones as a reward, as well as a plaque engraved with the 4 golden words Dragon-Tiger hegemony. The spirit stones were just a foil, and this plaque was the most valuable, because there were countless sects in the Falling Star continent, and only one was truly qualified to obtain it every few years. City Lord Han. Jun Chengxiao said seriously, "Can I use this plaque to exchange for tens of thousands of spirit stones?" "No." The corner of City Lord Han's mouth twitched. Although the cost of a plaque wasn't expensive, it wasn't something that any sect could afford to hang. He actually wanted to exchange it for spirit stones. Let's go, let's go. After the awards ceremony ended, Jun Changshao reluctantly took one last look at the image formation that was gradually closing and then left with his disciples. However, before he left, he sent a telepathic message, City Lord Han, if you don't plan on commercializing dragon and tiger battle for supremacy, in the future, if there are people who advertise like this June, there's no harm in blurring out their faces. That seems a bit difficult. Trust me, your array master will definitely be able to do it. We'll meet again. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, we'll meet again. After watching this guy leave with his disciples, City Lord Han finally let out a long sigh of relief. This crazy guy who advertised was finally gone. Finally, he didn't have to pay attention to him. The dragon-tiger hegemony had successfully ended. Just as everyone was still discussing, Jun Changshao returned to the sect with his disciples. In the depths of the northern desert state, in an area that no one had set foot in, a crack gradually appeared in the space, and a violent aura spread out. Foolish humans, do you think that you can seal me forever with just a few trash? In your dreams. Huang's fucking big dream. Chapter 725. There was an ancient altar in the Middle Supreme State that had existed for a long time. As for when it was built, the relevant departments could not give an accurate date. In the center of the altar, there was a globe-like ball that was emitting a faint light every day. Smack! One day, there was a slight crack in the ball of light. Whoosh! 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 5 white-robed old men hurriedly walked in from the outside. Their turbid eyes were filled with solemnity. Why did the space barrier crack? Could it be related to the space tremor from the great sage's imperial city? It's possible. The location of the crack. Not good. It's the uninhabited area where the demonic creature was sealed in the northern desert state. Let's go. Let's go. The leading elder said anxiously. Hurry up and reinforce it, lest that demonic creature breaks the seal and wreaks havoc on the falling star continent again. Whoosh! 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 5 streams of light flew out of the Middle Supreme State and headed toward the northern desert state. However, when they arrived at the scene, they only saw the space crack that was slowly healing. They did not find anything. It's over. The 5 of them were shocked. That demonic creature has escaped. It has been sealed for thousands of years. It must be very weak now. We must find it as soon as possible, the leading elder said in a low voice. In the sacred palace, an elder exuding a supreme aura sat in the main seat and shouted, Ling Yao, this is the consequence of your actions in the lower realm. Several dignified elders on both sides looked coldly at the graceful figure that seemed to be shrouded in clouds. The seal has aged long ago. It's only a matter of time before it breaks. A pleasant voice came from the clouds. Besides, don't you people of the realm hall look down on the beings of the lower realm? As long as the realm rules exist, no one is allowed to violate them, the leading elder shouted coldly. The graceful figure said indifferently, I've already explained it very clearly. It was just a casual wave of my hand and did not hurt any living beings. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. After saying that, she disappeared into thin air. My lord. The elder sitting on the left said in a low voice, this Empress Ling Yao is getting more and more presumptuous. She clearly violated the realm rules, but she just casually explained and left. What does she think the realm hall is? Because the woman had left without permission, the elders were furious. The dignified old man sitting at the head of the table snorted coldly, Empress Ling Yao, don't let anything fall into the hands of our boundary hall. My lord. The old man beside him said, the spatial barrier of the falling star continent was broken because of Empress Ling Yao. What should we do about it? She's right. The seal is gradually losing its effectiveness, and breaking it open is only a matter of time. Since it's unavoidable, we naturally have to let these mortals face it, the dignified old man said indifferently. After all, the sealed demonic creature is from the upper realm. The overall strength of the falling star continent has declined severely in the past few thousand years. I'm afraid it will be very difficult for us to fight against it, someone said solemnly. Any calamity is predestined by the heavens. Whether or not they can resolve it depends on their luck. How could we have the time to care about such a small matter? The dignified elder waved his hand and said, disperse. Qingyang, I'm hungry. I'll go get some vegetarian food. Jun Changshao said weakly as he lay on a bamboo chair in the beautiful forest. He looked very haggard. He originally looked like he was in his early 20s, but now he seemed to have aged more than 10 years. The cosmic talisman played a huge role in his current state. Seeing Jun Patriarch's miserable state, the system did not have the slightest bit of sympathy. Instead, it wanted to laugh. Ha 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 ha. Jun Changshao, Patriarch. Li Qingyang took out a bowl of fried rice from his spatial ring and said, I still have some dry food prepared by junior sister Lu. Do you want to make do with it? Jun Changshao opened his mouth slowly. After eating the fried rice, his body finally regained a little strength. He said, let's go, sigh. How pitiful. Jun Changshao was quite depressed about participating in the dragon-tiger battle for supremacy. He did not obtain many substantial martial arts resources. He only received a plaque, and it was not even made of pure gold. Why were the organizers so stingy for such a big competition? What made Jun Changshao slightly gratified was that, at the end of the dragon-tiger battle for supremacy, including the 2 experience talisman that he had used previously, he had obtained a total of 4. Before the competition between the Sect of All Times and the world-defying Sacred Sect, another side quest came. The Sect won the competition and was rewarded with 2 experience talisman. Because at that time, Night Emperor was in a hurry to torture Ao Wushuang, the author did not have the chance to write it. For such a big competition, only 4 experience talisman are given, and no contribution points are given. The system is even more stingy. Jun Changshao complained. The goods in the high-grade store were so awesome. He would rather use 4 experience talisman to exchange for 40,000 contribution points. This way, he could buy 4 goods and become stronger. It was impossible for him to cultivate. It was impossible for him to cultivate in this lifetime. If the conditions allowed, Jun Changshao would definitely choose to take the shortcut. Because he did not have the slightest bit of strength and did not bring the Demon Ridge Black Eagle, Jun Changshao could only return to the Sect of All Times in half a month under the circumstances of the disciples taking turns to carry him. But just as he reached the foot of the mountain, he saw a dense crowd of martial artists gathered together. His initial estimate was that there were at least 1 million martial artists. Oh my God! Su Xiaomao was shocked. So many people. Our hero is back. At this moment, someone shouted at the top of his lungs. Shua! 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 The martial artists who were anxiously waiting all looked over. When they saw Jun Changshao and the others, they all pulled out their banners and raised their banners. Jun Patriarch. Xie Guanquan walked forward and cupped his hands. Thank you for your hard work. As the city lord of Qingyang City, he definitely had to organize the crowd to congratulate the Sect of All Times for winning the dragon-tiger battle. Don't say. I've been waiting for a few days. Jun Changshao sat on the bamboo chair and cupped his hands. Thank you City Lord for your kindness. Shua! Shua! The people of Qingyang City spontaneously opened up a path to the mountain. The disciples of the Sect of All Times walked straight under their gazes. Everyone straightened their backs and enjoyed the feeling of being the center of attention. Jun Changshao also had mixed feelings. Although the main reason for participating in the dragon-tiger battle was for the spiritual stones, it still felt good to be welcomed by so many people. Right. There were still spiritual stones. When would Master Yi send them over? There was no hope for now because Dojo Master Yi was currently in a state of waking up, fainting, waking up, and fainting again. Huff huff. In the extremely dark forest, a pair of big eyes suddenly appeared from the bushes. The eyeballs looked up and down, left and right, and then walked out carefully. It was a slender man with a head of purple hair, but his entire body was naked. Although there was no one around, being naked in broad daylight was really against the customs. Roar! Roar! At this moment, a deafening roar came from the forest. One by one, huge spiritual beasts rushed out from the darkness and knelt in front of the purple-haired man. They shouted excitedly, "Greetings, King!" The purple-haired man sat on a rock and spread his legs elegantly. This man's face emitted a demonic aura and a faint aura of supremacy. He said, "After so many years, I'm comforted that you can still remember me. King." A spiritual beast laughed and said, "Do you want to wear human clothes first?" Boom! Suddenly, the purple-haired man appeared in front of it and sent it flying with a punch. He said coldly, "Wearing human clothes is blasphemy to my noble body." This was the reason why he didn't wear human clothes. The spiritual beasts couldn't help but shiver, and fear appeared in their eyes. King has been sealed for so long, but he is still so powerful. Our beast race is not far away from being revived again. King. A spiritual beast said weakly, "Our people are waiting for your return in Death Valley." Death Valley? The purple-haired man clenched his fists and said angrily, "My people must have been bullied terribly by humans all these years. Otherwise, why would they be in such a desolate place?" Su Xiaoma was lying on the floor, wiping the empty wine jars. He said drunkenly, Junior brother Li, why is your head so big? Tell me, did you drink too much?" Jun Changshao, who was sitting on the stairs of the main hall, looked at the group of disciples who were all over the place. He shook his head and said, "With this level of alcohol tolerance, you still have the nerve to call yourselves martial cultivators?" N? He turned his head and looked at the dining table in the distance. Yi Xingqian was sitting alone, as if he was thinking about something. Jun Changshao was very curious about this guy's background. However, he also knew that the other party was probably thinking about how he had been discovered by his enemy after being reborn. Yes. Yi Xingqian had been thinking about this matter. The more he thought about it, the more irritated and depressed he became. Thus, he stood up and looked at Jun Changshao. He said seriously, "Patriarch, can I apply to withdraw from the sect?" Li Qingyang and the others who were still in a drunken state suddenly became sober after hearing his words. They looked at him in astonishment, and then looked at the patriarch in astonishment. "Are you sure?" Jun Changshao took a sip of tea and said. Yi Xingqian clenched his fist and struggled in his heart. He said, "I'm sure." Senior brother Yi. Lu Wancher stared with her eyes wide open. "Everything is fine, why do you want to withdraw from the sect? Did senior brother Su purposely look for you to drink and make you unhappy? When it's time to eat tomorrow, I'll give him a spoonful less so that he won't be full." Su Xiaoma's mouth twitched. "I did look for him to drink, but seeing that he didn't say anything, I turned around and looked for Li Fei. How can you blame me? All of you, leave." Jun Changshao said. Li Qingyang wanted to say something, but seeing the patriarch's serious expression, he hurriedly signaled to his fellow disciples and left the martial arts field. After they left, Jun Changshao pointed at the door and said, "I've said before that if you want to leave, you can leave at any time." Schwa. Yi Xingqian thought for a while, picked up the bowl of wine in front of him, and drank it all. Then, he turned around and walked towards the door. "When you become successful in the future, come back and visit when you have time." After all, we are master and disciple, and we are fellow disciples. Jun Changshao said. Yi Xingqian didn't say anything and walked straight. If you die outside, I'll bring my disciples to collect your corpse. After all, we are master and disciple, and we are fellow disciples. Jun Changshao said. Ta. Yi Xingqian stopped. Although his back was facing Jun Changshao, his face showed a rare hesitation. Before you leave, I'll give you a word of advice. Once you step out of this sect, you will never have the chance to take revenge. Jun Changshao said. Yi Xingqian clenched his fists and said with difficulty, I've already been discovered. If I stay here, I'll only bring trouble to all of you. I might even bring disaster to all of you. Perhaps it was because of the bowl of wine, but this arrogant man finally said what he had suppressed in his heart. Jun Changshao said, Do you think your fellow disciples will care about that little trouble? They don't care. The disciples of the sect of all times yelled in unison. As it turned out, Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji didn't really leave. They stood in the inner courtyard and kept watching Yi Xingqian with their spiritual senses. Jun Changshao said, Your fellow disciples aren't afraid of trouble or death. What are you afraid of? Yi Xingqian's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He was struggling in his heart. If it was in the past, he would leave immediately if he wanted to. Now, he had become indecisive and worried about his gains and losses. If the sky falls, I'll hold it up. Jun Changshao said, What are you afraid of? Speaking of holding it up, Yi Xingqian remembered the back of the person who stood in front of him to welcome the upper realm's palm print in the arena. At the moment of life and death, someone protected him at all costs. This was something he had never experienced in his previous life. Although he was stubborn, he had to admit that the moment the patriarch stood in front of him, he was deeply moved. It was because of this that he kept thinking on the way back to the sect. Since he was discovered by that woman, would it bring danger to the sect? In his previous life, Knight Emperor, who had extremely low EQ and offended people easily, actually took the initiative to think for others. It was really commendable. Phew. Yi Xingqian took a deep breath. His clenched fists gradually relaxed. Swoosh. He turned around and sat back in his previous position. He turned his face to the side and said, Patriarch, I drank too much just now. I've forgotten what I said. Su Xiaoma. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, Fill his cup. If you can't drink him today, you'll have to wash the dishes in the cafeteria for 3 months. Yes. Su Xiaoma shouted. He thought to himself, Who did I offend? Junior brother Yi. After pouring the wine, Su Xiaoma raised his cup and said, Come, the patriarch has ordered that your senior brother will be responsible for getting you drunk today. Yi Xingqian picked up the bowl and drank it all without saying anything. Ha! This guy was quite forthright. Come, come. 2 hours later. Su Xiaoma drank until he collapsed on the table. Yi Xingqian, whose face was flushed, slowly walked to the front of the bonfire. She held an empty wine jar in each hand and began to dance with her hands and feet. Chapter 727. At that time, Knight Emperor didn't understand at all and even had the urge to beat him up. Now that he recalled it again, he seemed to have been enlightened. The patriarch's words rang in his ears, Xingqian, when you understand the meaning of the words unyielding and unyielding, you will naturally understand. Yi Xingqian seemed to have understood a little, so he completely let go of himself and drank to his heart's content with Su Xiaoma until he was dead drunk. Unfortunately, under the influence of alcohol, he would also do irrational things, such as dancing around the fire. Jun Changshao turned on the magically modified sound system. Tang San Zhang sang, Only You, in the Chinese novel Journey to the West to accompany Yi Xingqian's dancing. The fire was burning fiercely. A drunken man completely let go of himself and let go of himself. That night, Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji sat in front of the stairs, all of them holding their chins as they watched Yi Xingqian dance until midnight. Swoosh! Late in the morning, Yi Xingqian suddenly got up from his bed. Seeing that he was sleeping in the side room, he held his aching head and said, "Wasn't I drinking? Junior brother, you're awake." When he walked out of the side room and walked on the road to the outer courtyard, his junior brothers all smiled and greeted him. The smiles on their faces were a little strange and a little uncomfortable. "No, no." Yi Xingqian knocked on his head and said, "Something must have happened yesterday." "Junior brother Yi." At this moment, Su Xiaomao caught up from behind and said with a smile, "You're really good at drinking. You made me drunk yesterday." Yi Xingqian didn't say anything and said in his heart, "Did I? Why don't I remember?" Hee hee. Li Fei walked over quickly and said, "Junior brother Yi danced well." "Not bad." Yi Xingqian frowned slightly. Li Fei said in surprise, "Junior apprentice brother Yi, you wouldn't have blacked out from drinking, right? Did you forget how you danced around the fire with 2 empty wine jars yesterday?" Caw! Yi Xingqian was dumbfounded. After a long time, his muscles stiffened as he said, "I was dancing." The plaque with the words, "Dragon and Tiger Contend for Hegemony," was hung in Jun Changxiao's study. Occasionally, when he glanced at it, he would think of the scene of his disciples fighting on the fighting stage, and he would smile with gratification. The relationship between Jun Changxiao and his disciples was equivalent to that of a master and disciple. They had proven themselves in the biggest sect competition, and as a master, he would naturally be incomparably proud. Patriarch. Li Qingyang came over and said, "The patriarch of the northern desert states Tsang Sha sect has come to visit." "Oh." Jun Changxiao said, "Why is he here?" The business with the northern desert state had been established a long time ago. Every month, there would be a delivery of ores and materials. Calculating the time, it was just right. But Feng Feisha personally came over, which was indeed a bit surprising. Could it be that he was here to congratulate? "Invite him in." Jun Changxiao went to the main hall. Just as he sat down, Feng Feisha came in under the guidance of Li Qingyang. He cupped his hands and said, "Congratulations to Jun Patriarch Sect for winning the championship of the Dragon and Tiger Contend for Hegemony." "Thank you." Jun Changxiao waved his hand and said, "Patriarch Feng, please sit." Feng Feisha sat down and said, "The amount of ores mined during this period of time is quite large. I was worried that there would be some accidents, so I personally escorted you." Jun Changxiao said, "Thank you, Patriarch Feng. If you are not in a hurry to go back, please stay for a meal. Then I will accept your invitation." "Oh my God." In the cafeteria, Feng Feisha raised his chopsticks and closed his eyes. His entire soul felt like it was about to fly out of his body and swim in the endless sky. Lu Wancher's cooking had deeply shocked him. His soul floated for a long time before returning to his body. "Patriarch Feng." Jun Changxiao smiled and said, "This time, you came here not just to deliver ores, right?" "That's right." When it came to the main topic, Feng Feisha withdrew his exaggerated expression and said with a serious expression, "Jun Patriarch Feng, have you heard of the Purple King?" "No." Jun Changxiao shook his head and said. Feng Feisha lowered his voice and said, "Thousands of years ago, the Purple King suddenly appeared in the Falling Star continent and gathered a million-beast army in the northern desert state." "There is such a thing?" Jun Changxiao was surprised. Feng Feisha said, "Fortunately, the top experts of the continent discovered it in time and sent 4 wusheng to seal it." Jun Changxiao drank a mouthful of wine and said, "Even 4 wusheng were alarmed. This the Purple King is very strong. I think it must have brought a big disaster to the continent." "No, it did not." Feng Feisha said, "Because it was discovered in time, the Purple King was sealed by the 4 experts before he could do anything. The million beasts lost their leader and scattered." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Alarmed 4 wusheng and gathered a million-beast army. The Purple King was clearly a guy who was going to do big things. But in the end, he died before he even started. This was a tragic villain. Sealed. Jun Changshao said, "You mean he is still alive?" Feng Feisha came closer and said, "Jun Patriarch Feng, is this the purpose of my visit?" "What do you mean?" Jun Changshao asked. "As far as I know, this evil creature has broken the seal and reappeared in the world." At this point, Feng Feisha's voice was very low, creating a very frightening atmosphere. Jun Changshao said, "Is that so?" He didn't care too much. After all, a guy who died before he could do anything, even if he came out again, what could he do? Jun Patriarch Feng Feisha. Feng Feisha said, "This news must be kept secret because the central province has blocked this information to avoid causing panic. I am here to remind you not to let the disciples go to the mountains for training." "Why?" Jun Changshao asked. Feng Feisha said, "The Purple King can communicate with beasts and can awaken their intelligence. If you are unlucky enough to meet him, you will not be able to return." "I see." Jun Changshao raised his cup and said, "Come, let's drink." "Wait." Feng Feisha picked up his chopsticks and grinned, "Let me eat a few more bites." "Eat as much as you want, no need to be polite." Can I take it away if I can't finish it?" After Feng Feisha finished his meal, he really took the leftovers back. And this time, he brought a lot of ores that Jun Changshao could use to create equipment to increase the strength of the disciples. As for the Purple King, he didn't care at all. After all, if this evil creature really had the power to cause trouble, as long as it didn't affect him, there would be righteous sects and experts to deal with it. Death Valley. This forbidden area that used to be filled with beasts was now a bit desolate. Because after Jun Changshao brought the disciples here to train and dealt with the powerful beasts, there was no more danger. Plop. An evil cultivator from Huayang County fell in the area where the fire dragon beast used to be. His eyes were filled with fear and shock. Trash. A naked evil man stood in front of him and stepped on his face. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets as he said, "Where is my egg?" "Egg? Isn't it growing between your legs?" I don't know. I just came in today." The evil cultivator said in fear. Bang! The evil man exerted force with his foot, and the evil cultivator's head exploded. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. He turned around and grabbed a low-grade ferocious beast that lived in Death Valley. He pointed at his glabella and asked, "Where's my egg?" The beast that couldn't speak suddenly became intelligent. It said with a trembling voice, My egg was taken away by a human." "Who?" I don't know." Bang! The evil man kicked it away and said angrily, "Trash." "My king." A half-human spiritual beast said, "The fire dragon beast has been guarding the egg. As long as we find out who killed it, we should be able to find out who took it away." Smart. The evil man patted its shoulder and said, "You are indeed my left. What the fuck is my left arm?" Chapter 728. Jun Changshao threw all the ores that Feng Feisha gave him into the space ring and started refining. Because there were a lot of materials, it would take a few days to refine all of them. Aha! The fire dragon yawned in its nest in the study room. During this period of time, the little guy did not enter hibernation, and its physique did not change much. It looked the same as before. Jun Changshao murmured, "What is it?" When the Supreme Elder of the Extreme Cold Palace came, the little dragon transformed into a 5-clawed dragon, which made him very shocked. He had been wondering whether it was the ability of a beast or its real body. The fire dragon is obviously a dinosaur, how can it give birth to a real dragon? Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "It must be a mutation." Thinking back to how he invested a lot of crystal nuclei and even went bankrupt to hatch the little dragon, he felt that it was very worth it. Now that I have a lot of funds, if I find a few more eggs to hatch, will I be able to hatch mutated beasts like Taotai, Phoenix, and Kuan? Jun Changshao murmured. The system said, in dreams, yes. Jun Changshao ignored it and went to the medicine hall to ask Elder Wei when the materials to refine the martial king Dan would be ready. Then, he went to the Wu Tang class to inspect. At this moment, Ning Duxing was patiently explaining the difficulties of martial arts to the new disciples. Although all kinds of martial arts facilities could help the disciples improve faster, it was still necessary to learn specialized martial arts knowledge. Otherwise, if they relied on cheating to improve, they would feel very weak. Elder Ning. Shangguan Xinyao raised her hand and said, "Disciple still has questions." Class dismissed. Ning Duxing hurriedly left the Wu Tang class without looking back. He was afraid that if he walked slowly, he would get a headache from this girl's questions. The disciples expressed their understanding. Not to mention Elder Ning, even they would collapse. In the sect of all times, Shangguan Xinyao was definitely a very scary existence. When the elders like Jiang Ye saw her, they were like mice seeing a cat, hiding as far away as possible. Such a scary woman, but Jun Changshao was afraid that she would melt in the palm of his hand, because whether he could exchange the techniques in the technique pavilion or not depended on her. Patriarch. Just as he was about to continue inspecting the wolf riding hall, Li Qingyang hurried over and said, "There are many people at the foot of the mountain, they want to sign up for the assessment." There were a lot of them, a lot of them. Jun Changshao released his spiritual sense, and he found out that there were at least 30 to 50,000 teenagers gathered at the foot of the mountain. They were all around 17 or 18 years old. Judging from their attire, they should have come from different states and counties. They all had the aura of realms around them. They should have already practiced martial arts. Shua. Jun Changshao walked to the front of the mountain gate and put on his sunglasses. He looked down and said in surprise, "So many high-grade spiritual roots?" "Many. There were at least a few hundred. There was not even a single one was a spiritual. Under the dazzling light sunglasses, there were many youths with question marks in their attributes. This meant that they were not martial cultivators, but sword cultivators, blade cultivators, and so on. Patriarch. Ning Duxing said, "There are still a few days before the recruitment day. Then let them wait." Jun Changshao said. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. He would not bring forward the recruitment day because of the large number of people. He must develop a fixed day and a fixed recruitment habit. Patriarch. Ning Duxing suggested, every day, people come to the sect in advance to wait for the assessment day. Most of them live in Qingyang town, which is far away. Why don't we build a town at the foot of the mountain and let the sect manage it directly? Not only can we provide them with a place to stay, but we can also open various industries and make profits. That makes sense. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. Although Mount Ironbone belonged to Qingyang town, the two were a little far apart. It was not a bad idea to build a town at the foot of the mountain and buy some industries for development. It was very common for the sect to have a town at the foot of the mountain. Many tourists admired it and often lived nearby. What's more, Jun Patriarch's ambition was to build the sect of all times into a martial arts holy land. If the day really came, he had to give the world a place to worship. Elder Ning. Jun Changshao said, I'll leave this matter to you and Qingyang. Yes. Ning Duxing said. Hearing that the patriarch wanted to build a town at the foot of the mountain, Li Qingyang's eyes suddenly became hot. Expanding and transforming the sect was obviously not enough to satisfy this civil engineer. Building and planning a town was undoubtedly more challenging. On the same day, Chief Steward Li began to think hard. After a night of hard work, he successfully formulated a preliminary plan for the town. Patriarch. In the hall, Li Qingyang unfolded the blueprint and said seriously, in my preliminary idea, the scale of this city is not inferior to Qingyang town. There are 2 main streets, 12 secondary streets, and, no need to say more. Jun Changshao said, let's get to the point. How much money do you need? This, Li Qingyang scratched his head and said, I haven't calculated yet. Jun Changshao threw him a few large space rings and said, use the money inside as you wish. You must use the best construction materials. Yes. Li Qingyang said, Patriarch, can I borrow your Peppa wild boar? The little guy plowed the land in the herb garden every day and was already familiar with it. It would definitely have a miraculous effect on the construction of the town. No problem. Jun Changshao said. With absolute funds, Li Qingyang and Ning Duxing went all out. First of all, they had to choose the land at the foot of the mountain. This aspect was very meticulous. Not only did they have to pay attention to many aspects, but more importantly, they had to look at the feng shui. To build a town in the territory, they had to report to the city and obtain the approval of the city lord. However, Jun Changshao did not need to do so because he was the county lord of Qingyang County. The site selection was confirmed. Lanxiang's excavator specialist, Peppa Wild Boar, was in place. 21st. It was suitable for dismantling, excavating and repairing. It was taboo for burials and funerals. Li Qingyang stood on the planned land and nodded to Xiao Ziji in the distance. He covered his ears and said, the groundbreaking ceremony begins now. Boom! A loud boom reverberated in Mount Iron Bone. It was the roar of the field artillery, announcing the start of the construction of the town. However, Peppa Wild Boar was disturbed by the sound of the artillery. Its eyelids rolled up and its 4 legs straightened. It was so scared that it fainted. Clang! The green dragon crescent blade was inserted in front of it. Jun Changshao said gloomily, don't pretend to be dead. Get up and work. Peppa Wild Boar stood up with a whoosh. Then, with tears in its eyes, it began to gather the earth element spiritual energy and got busy on the ground. Under the setting sun, the pitiful figure was running around. Patriarch. Li Qingyang said, have you thought of the name of the town? Yes. Jun Changshao said, let's call it Ironbone Town. Why not Wangu Town? Li Qingyang was puzzled. Jun Changshao looked at the sky and said seriously, that is to comfort sect leader Wang's soul in heaven. Sect leader Wang was the one who built the Ironbone sect. Later, he took over and developed it into the current sect of all times. However, this mountain would always be Mount Ironbone, and this town would always be called Ironbone Town. The plaque hanging in the main hall would always have the words Ironbone Sect. Chapter 729. Since there was a town at the foot of the mountain, there would naturally be permanent residents. Jun Changshao had already decided to move all the villagers of Qingyang village there and give them permanent residency. During the time when they transmigrated to the Falling Star continent, the sect was poor and it was difficult to even find food. They would definitely not be mistreated if they went to the village to eat and drink every day. Moreover, the family members of the sect's disciples could also apply to move in. Not only would it be convenient to visit, but it would also allow the family to reunite during festivals. Humanizing. This was one of the core tenets of Jun Changshao when he established the sect. The construction of a town was a big project. Even with the help of Peppa the Wild Boar and the disciples, it would still take time. Jun Changshao was naturally not in a hurry when he handed over everything to Li Qingyang and Ning Duxing. Other than occasionally taking a look, he spent most of his time recuperating. A few days later, the entrance examination of the sect of all times began. This time, Jun Changshao gave a clear recruitment quota, which was just enough to gather 20,000 members. Supplement less, supplement more. Because of the battle of dragons and tigers, and because of the advertisement, the youths who came were more outstanding in all aspects. Many of them passed the first round of the gravity assessment. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, there is no limit to the number of people. They can all be accepted. And if there is a town, these youths who have good qualifications but have to be eliminated can stay temporarily and be recruited after the upper limit is raised. Therefore, it was necessary to build a town at the foot of the mountain. After the second round of assessment, according to the patriarch's wishes, the Ning brothers selected a total of 20,000 members. As for the youths who were not recruited, they were first appeased and allowed to stay in Qingyang village or Qingyang town temporarily. Ding! Ding! One by one, the disciples were stamped and became a disciple. Jun Changshao heard an endless stream of notifications. Sect member, 200,002,0000. Sect contribution points, 200,002,0000. When the last youth became a disciple of the sect of all times, all the statistics were completely fixed. Jun Changshao, who had obsessive-compulsive disorder, took the initiative to buy materials such as forging rooms and aptitude elixirs before the opening examination. Therefore, all the members and contribution points were full. Ding! Sect mission activated. After the notifications ended, a new mission was issued. In terms of difficulty, it was obviously more difficult than before. However, it was not difficult to complete it as the sect's disciples had become stronger. Some of the quests were even related to the town he was building, such as how many days he had to work as a bricklayer or how many bricks he had to move. I have to continue clearing the contribution points. After completing the sect mission, he would definitely receive contribution points and achievement points. Therefore, Jun Changshao opened up the system store and decided to spend 10,000 contribution points to clear up some space in advance. What should I buy? After pondering for a long time, Zhang Xian still couldn't come to a decision. The main reason was that most of the goods in the advanced shopping mall were useful, so it was difficult for him to choose what to buy. Why don't we buy a modified RPG rocket launcher? Lord Changshao muttered. He had been eyeing this item for a long time. Since it came from the advanced mall and had the words divine modification, it was definitely more powerful than the field artillery. Didn't you say that it would be very difficult for firearms to adapt to the falling star continent in the future? Why would the advanced shop still have rocket launchers? Jun Cheng asked with a smile. The system was speechless. The firearms I am talking about are limited to firearms, not artillery-type heavy weapons. Jun Changshao said, that's why I have to buy it. Ding! Host has spent 10,000 contribution points and obtained God-modified RPG rocket launcher X1. It has been transported into the space ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 100,002,0000. Schwa! Jun Changshao took out the God-modified RPG rocket launcher and placed it on his shoulder. He leaned his eyes on the aiming device and muttered, men should play with cannons. He took out the crystal nuclei and began to condense the cannonball. In the end, it took 20 crystal nuclei to condense one. Field cannons don't even need so many. If this rocket launcher is fired, it will definitely be very powerful. Jun Changshao said with a burning gaze. He did not press the launch button. Instead, he called Xiao Ziji over and said, this is the latest model of firearms. Come and try it. The God-modified RPG rocket launcher could not only be used by himself, but also by his disciples. This was the main reason why Jun Changshao bought it. Patriarch. Xiao Ziji took it and said weakly, is the recoil big? Not big. Jun Changshao said. Good. Xiao Ziji took it and imitated the patriarch. He placed it on his shoulder and said, Patriarch, where do you want to hit? Jun Changshao pointed to a mountain peak in the distance and said, we need more stone for the construction of the town. You are responsible for shooting it down. After saying that, he took 100 steps back. Xiao Ziji was focused on the mountain peak and did not notice that the patriarch had slipped away in advance. Pa! Bang! The sound of the explosion was so loud that it seemed as if the space was trembling. The faces of the disciples who were cultivating in the sect changed slightly. They looked up in the direction of the voice and saw a stream of light bursting out, leaving behind cloud-like traces wherever it passed. Boom! The mountain peak suddenly collapsed, rolling up dust that covered the sky. This was not dust, this was stone powder. Under the bombardment of the rocket launcher, not only was the entire mountain flattened, even the smallest stone was turned into powder. Ka ka ka, the space suddenly cracked and then spread out. Seeing this, the Sect of All Times disciples' mouths gradually opened and their eyes widened. As expected. Jun Changshao said, "It can shatter space." The introduction mentioned at the God-modified RPG rocket launcher had the ability to shatter space. Of course. The biggest feature of the God-modified shopping mall was its special effects. The special effect of the God-modified RPG rocket launcher was called Precision Strike. As long as it was activated and locked onto the target, they would be punished regardless of whether they flew or escaped to the ends of the earth. Wait. Jun Changshao said, "I've sinned." At this time, he realized that his disciple was no longer there. The area where he was standing just now had sunk in by several feet. At the same time, there was white smoke rising. Plop. On the training field in the inner courtyard, Xiao Ziji hugged the God-modified RPG rocket launcher and fell straight down. Immediately, he lay flat on the ground and said weakly, I knew it would be like this, The evil man in Death Valley felt a weak vibration in the air and muttered, "There are human experts fighting?" King. A spiritual beast with an arm walked over and reported, "I've investigated. The one who killed the fire dragon is a sect called the Sect of All Times." The evil man spread his legs and supported his chin with his palm. With a cold gaze, he said, "What's their level?" "Fifth rate." "Fifth rate?" He smiled coldly and said, "With my current strength, it won't be a problem to get rid of them." King, the spiritual beast whispered, "The Sect of All Times is not simple." I heard, the evil man forcefully interrupted, "Hurry and contact more people. After I get rid of this trash sect, I'll recuperate and declare war on the humans." "Yes." The spiritual beast said. Whoosh. The evil man stood up and left Death Valley naked. "You dare to steal my eggs? I'll crush your eggs." Kakik. Sect of All Times. Xiao Ziji came back to his senses and touched the God-modified RPG rocket launcher. He said happily, "Patriarch, this gun is very powerful. In terms of AoE damage, it was not as good as field cannons, but its power was not inferior. In fact, it was even stronger. Most importantly, it was very light and easy to carry around." Jun Changshao said, "You can take it first. In the future, if any enemy dares to cause trouble for the Sect of All Times, just give them a shot." "Okay." Xiao Ziji nodded. He was eager to find a living target to test. It would be best if the target was not weak. Chapter 730. At the foot of the mountain, the construction of the town was in full swing. As the sect's mission involved this aspect, many disciples came to help. The scene of the disciples chatting and laughing as they worked together really revealed a thick sense of joy and warmth. Huff. Yang Yuhua rubbed his hands and carried the thousands of bricks on his back. Kacha. Just as he took 2 steps, a strange sound came from behind him. He turned his head to the side and saw a man with purple hair and a slender figure walking over. The bricks along the way were crushed to pieces. When the busy disciples heard the commotion, they all turned around and looked over. Their expressions immediately became interesting. That man was actually naked. As the scene was very indecent, please fill in the mosaic for him. Oh my God. Wasn't he ashamed to be naked in broad daylight? Didn't he have any sense of shame? Awesome! Su Xiaoma said in admiration. He used to think about how it would feel to walk on the street naked, but he never had the courage to do it. Now, someone actually dared to do something he didn't dare to do. What a pervert! The evil man said coldly, "Is this the sect of all times?" Yang Yuhua's mouth twitched. Friend, although the weather has been cool recently, you don't have to come out naked, right? Swoosh! The evil-looking man suddenly took a step forward and threw out a punch. Boom! The sound of the punch was heard, and dust flew. Yang Yuhua still stood on the spot. He blocked his face with his palm and said coldly, "Are you here to pick a fight?" Eh? The evil man was surprised. To be able to take a punch from me, you're not bad. Swoosh! Another punch was thrown. This time, the strength was much stronger than before. Although Yang Yuhua could see it, he realized that the other party's strength had increased greatly. He hurriedly used cloud-treading steps to retreat. TSK, TSK. The evil man's punch missed and he smiled sinisterly. You're quite capable. Boom! Yang Yuhua threw down the thousands of bricks and said with a sullen face, "Senior brother, someone is here to pick a fight." Swoosh! Su Xiaoma was the first to rush over. Brat, did you take the wrong medicine? How dare you come to the sect of all times to pick a fight? Long Xiang, Song Xianzhou, and the others who were helping out at the construction site also gathered around. If the disciples of the sects participating in the Dragon Tiger contest saw this, they would surely feel despair, as they knew that these were a bunch of monsters. However, the evil man said coldly, "A bunch of trash." Hey! Su Xiaoma clenched his fists and said, "How dare you scold us?" It was very rare for someone to come to the sect to look for trouble. Today, a nude pervert had suddenly appeared. He was definitely going to teach him a good lesson. Brothers, Su Xiaoma said in a clear voice, "Let's capture him together." All right. Everyone immediately unleashed their cultivation and swarmed forward. Powerful auras instantly filled the entire construction site. Boom! Boom! Not long after, Su Xiaoma and the others unlocked all kinds of new positions. They flew out gorgeously and then fell to the ground in a sorry state. Even Yang Yuhua, who had a strong physical body, staggered back dozens of steps and then squatted on the ground. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. It can't be. This naked guy is so strong. Especially when he attacked, the bone-chilling baleful aura that exploded out made the disciples feel as if they were fighting with an extremely powerful ferocious beast. Although the evil man had taken down all the disciples of the sect of all times, his face was filled with displeasure. He had been sealed for too long and his strength had deteriorated too much. Otherwise, he would have easily killed this group of trash. In fact, he didn't know that if it were any other martial artist, they would have been killed long ago. However, the disciples of the sect of all times were very resistant. Even if they were sent flying, they would only be injured and not in any danger. Elder Jiang. Su Xiaoma, who was clutching his stomach, said telepathically, "Someone is here to pick a fight. Quickly come out and kill him." Shua! Shua! Jiang Ye and the Ning brothers had already heard the commotion. They flew out of the sect and landed on the construction site. Seeing the disciples being beaten to a pulp, their eyes flashed with anger. Go! Boom! 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 Huff! At the entrance of the training tower, Xiao Ziji walked out and took a deep breath. He would come here to train for a period of time every day. As he had gradually gotten used to it, he didn't feel tired at all. Junior brother Xiao. Tian Qi hurried over and said, "A naked guy came to the sect to pick a fight and injured senior brother Su and the others. Quickly go and take a look." Shua! Xiao Ziji hurriedly flew over. He wondered in his heart, is the naked guy a person's name? Tianqi didn't follow him. Instead, he merged into the training tower. He wanted to continue calling for people, such as eldest senior sister, Yixingchen, and Yiwudi who were cultivating inside. As long as he gathered the strongest combat power of the sect, he would definitely be able to torture that pervert until he cried and screamed. Boom! Dang, dang, dang! At the construction site at the foot of the mountain, the Ning brothers and the evil man exchanged 2 blows. They staggered back with a serious expression. The aura of this naked guy was really strange. His strength was probably at least at Wu Huang's level. If they wanted to get rid of him, they would probably need the patriarch's 2 servants. You guys. The evil man grabbed his hair and broke down. Why are you guys so tough? He was angry and furious. He had an absolute advantage in strength, but he could only send these humans flying. Not a single one of them was killed. No matter how weak I am, I can't be weak to this extent. Or could it be that in this world, the humans' understanding of martial arts has improved and they can have defenses that are not inferior to the beast race? Damn it! The evil man roared angrily. His eyes flashed red. He immediately rushed in front of Jiang Ye and gathered his most violent strength to attack. Peng, the ground instantly caved in, but he didn't hit his target. Because a solid earth wall appeared in front of him. Xiao Ziji stood in front of Jiang Ye and said, "This guy's strength is so strong." Of course. He also understood the meaning of the naked guy. So, it wasn't his name. He was really naked. Peng. The earth wall collapsed. Xiao Ziji took a few steps back before he could stabilize his body. The arms that he used to support the earth wall were in pain. You can even block this. The evil man looked like he was about to collapse. Even Wu Huang might not be able to block his attack in anger. A guy with the aura of a martial king was able to stabilize his body. This was too much of a blow to his self-esteem. King. Don't cry. Don't be discouraged. It's not that you aren't strong enough. It's that your opponent is too monstrous. Junior brother Xiao. Su Xiaoma, who was lying in the distance, said, "This guy is a bit strong. Hurry, hurry and inform the patriarch, no need." Xiao Ziji's mind moved, and the god-modified RPG rocket launcher appeared. Then, he placed it on his shoulder and said coldly, "Leave this guy to me." Hoo. A thick earth element aura spread out and wrapped around his legs like vines. Then, it connected with the ground. His entire body seemed to have turned into a fort. The recoil of the god-modified RPG rocket launcher was too strong. Xiao Ziji didn't dare to fire directly. So, he used the earth element to stabilize his body. This move was very tricky. GGG. The evil man laughed strangely and said, "Stupid human, you think you can hurt this king with a piece of wood?" Shwa. He rushed over barefoot. His hands gathered a violent aura, causing the construction site to become abnormally oppressive. Xiao Ziji held the god-modified RPG rocket launcher and waited until the other party rushed to the area where it could explode without hurting his fellow sect members. Then, he decisively pulled the trigger. Hurt my fellow sect members. Then accept the death penalty. Peng, the shell shot out, causing ripples in the air and billowing white smoke. Xiao Ziji, who had layers of earth element support, only leaned back and didn't fly out. However, the evil man's pupils suddenly shrank. The moment the shell burst out, a strong sense of danger surged in his heart. At that moment, the scene of him being tortured by the 5 wusheng and being sealed appeared in front of his eyes. Am I going to, boom? A deafening sound rang in the construction site. The violent energy wantonly swept away Su Xiaoma and the others who were lying in the distance. Jun Changshao, who heard the sound, got up from the chair in the study room. He took off the mask on his face and said in surprise, "Sinful self fired the cannon?" Hoo. In the explosion area, the wind whistled. Su Xiaoma, who was swept away, stood up with difficulty. Looking at the dust covering the sky, the corner of his mouth twitched and said, "Junior brother Xiao, this thing of yours is more powerful than a field cannon." Amazing! Jiang Ye and Ning Duxing said in shock in unison. They were the closest to the explosion and could clearly feel the power of the explosion just now. It was definitely at the level of an emperor. Ka ka ka. The soil surrounding Xiao Zuiji's body quickly crumbled. He pressed the smoking barrel against the ground and breathed in large mouthfuls of air. Although he used his attribute to offset the recoil, his body still couldn't bear it, and his whole body seemed very weak. Gradually, the dust dissipated, and everything became clear. The naked evil man stood in the same place. His whole body was charred black, and his hair was still smoking. Then, he fell to the ground with his eyes rolled back, and white foam flowed out of his mouth. No way. Su Xiaoma said in surprise, he didn't die. Such a strong explosion was enough to blow the target into pieces, but this guy was only in a sorry state and fainted. It was incredible. Xiao Ziji was also stunned. What's going on? At this moment, Jun Changshao rushed down from the mountain. Patriarch. Xiao Ziji pointed at the unconscious evil man and said, "Someone came to the sect to cause trouble and injured many of our fellow disciples, so this disciple directly opened fire." Jun Changshao had already walked over. When he saw the guy who was blasted beyond recognition, he said in surprise, "He didn't explode into thin air." Patriarch. Jiang Ye said solemnly, "When this guy attacked, he emitted an aura like a fierce beast. His physical body should be very strong." Jun Changshao said with a cold face, "He dared to come to the sect of all times to cause trouble and even injured my disciple. This guy is tired of living. Come. Bring him back to the sect." Yes. In this way, the naked evil man was dragged up the sect of all times like a dead dog by several disciples of the sect of all times. The most tragic thing was that the back of his head hit the stairs when he went up. Death Valley. The spirit beast was actively mobilizing its kind from other provinces and counties, and it was full of imagination. Although we failed the first time, the king will definitely lead our beast race to become the ruler of the falling star continent this time. Chapter 731. The evil man and the disciple of the sect of all times fought and destroyed the construction site. Standing in front of the ruins, Peppa the wild boar cried sadly. The hard work of the past few days had gone down the drain. Now, it had to do it all over again. How sad was that? If the bald man hadn't been brought into the sect and locked up, it would have stomped on him to vent its displeasure. Patriarch. In the main hall, Li Qingyang calculated and said, "The damage caused by that guy is about a few 100,000 taels." A few 100,000 taels. Jun Changshao crossed his hands and his eyes gradually turned cold. He had money. But it did not come from the wind. If he came to cause trouble, he would lose so much money. Despicable guy. Jun Changshao said angrily, "If I don't torture you to death, how can I be worthy of the few 100,000 taels that I lost?" In the sturdy prison cell. Zhao Daodu shrank in the corner and looked at the charred man who had been thrown here for a while. His mouth twitched slightly. So, he was not the one who was tortured the most. So, the sect of all times had even more terrifying torture methods. From the looks of this guy, could it be that he had been roasted on a fire for a long time? Sigh. Zhao Daodu sighed and a trace of sympathy appeared in his eyes. Creak. The prison door opened and a ray of sunlight shone in. Zhao Daodu hurriedly closed his eyes and said sadly, "Torturing me again." Because he pretended to be Jun Patriarch, he was locked up in the sect of all times for a long time. He was bullied by the disciples for no reason. Now, he had developed a good habit of being submissive. Jun Changshao walked in and sat on the prepared chair. He waved his hand and said, "Hang him up." Yes. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei walked forward and tied the evil man up. Then, they pulled the chain and hung him up. If the beasts who were gathering in Death Valley and had the dream of ruling over humans knew that their king was hung in prison, how would they feel? Splash! Cold water was poured over him. The evil-looking man opened his eyes with great difficulty. There was a faint viciousness in his eyes, but he was still weak. Although he didn't die from using his physical body to block the artillery shell, he would definitely be seriously injured. The evil-looking man gradually regained his senses and quickly realized that he was being hung up. There were a few humans standing in front of him, so he shouted angrily, "Be bastard!" Boom! Su Xiaoma's fist landed on his face, and he said, "You've become a prisoner, yet you still dare to scold people." The evil-looking man tried his best to turn his face around, his eyes flashing with intense killing intent. It was a pity. Due to his heavy injuries, he was unable to break free from the chains. Jun Changshao said, "You destroyed the construction site and caused me to lose so much money. Let's count it as one punch for one tail." Boom! Boom! Su Xiaoma and Li Fei completely let go of each other and bombarded the evil man with their fists. Because the evil man was very resistant to beatings, it felt especially good to hit him. Zhao Daodu cowered in the corner, shivering in fear. If it were him, he would have been dead by now after taking a few punches from them. Boom! Boom! After torturing him for half an hour, Su Xiaoma and Li Fei finally stopped, sweating profusely. On the other hand, although the evil-looking man's face was ferocious, he did not faint from the crazy violence. Patriarch! Su Xiaoma gasped and said, "This guy is too good at taking a beating." Forcefully resisting the bombardment of the god-modified RPG rocket launcher, he was only charred black, which made Jun Changshao believe that the other party must be a martial cultivator who had developed his physical body to the extreme. Humph! The evil-looking man endured the pain and said with difficulty, "A group of bastards, how can you hurt this king? Although he had been reduced to a prisoner, his inherent nobility would not be lost." This king? Jun Changshao was surprised. According to Jiang Ye's guess, this person should be Wu Huang. Why didn't he call himself this emperor? Why did he call himself this king so modestly? Jun Changshao put on his dazzling sunglasses and activated the aptitude and level prying function. In the end, all the data provided by the other party were question marks. Isn't this guy a martial cultivator? If he wasn't a martial cultivator, how could he have such a strong body? Or was he actually a swordsman who also paid attention to the tempering of his physical body? Kid! The evil-looking man raised his head with difficulty and said, "You're the patriarch of the sect of all times." This was deduced from Su Xiaoma calling him patriarch. "That's right," Jun Changshao said calmly. The evil-looking man's eyes suddenly became cold and fierce. He said, "Where's this king's egg?" Egg? Jun Changshao subconsciously looked at his crotch and said calmly, "Isn't it growing on your body?" It didn't explode. The evil-looking man said, This king is talking about an egg with a shell." An egg with a shell? Jun Changshao was puzzled by his words. "Kid." The evil-looking man said coldly, "Hand over the egg, and this king will spare your life." Su Xiaoma and Li Fei were instantly amused. This bald man still didn't realize that he was already a prisoner and could be killed at any time. "Don't talk nonsense." Jun Changshao's eyes were cold and fierce. He said, "Speak, who sent you here?" The sect had just won the Dragon Tiger Hegemony competition and their prestige was unparalleled. For someone to come and cause trouble at this time, it was definitely strange. Could it be the Darkness sect? They had changed their style and were no longer sneaking around. Instead, they directly sent experts to kill them. They had fought so many times and should know each other's strength. Why did they send such a weak person? This king will say it again, the evil-looking man emphasized. Hand over the egg quickly. Otherwise, your sect of all times will become a pile of ruins. Zhao Daodu, who was far away, was full of admiration. He was already a prisoner and hung up, yet he was still boasting shamelessly. How much courage did that require? Jun Changshao said coldly, continue beating him. Yes. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei clenched their fists and walked forward again. However, just as they were about to attack, the evil-looking man's eyes suddenly flashed red. A violent aura filled the prison cell. Jun Changshao frowned. The aura that erupted from that guy was completely unlike a human's martial aura. Instead, it was more like a savage beast. The system said, this guy is not human. Not human. Jun Changshao's face was filled with surprise. The evil-looking man, who was surrounded by a terrifying aura, had a twisted expression. He said, how dare you humiliate this king? Then, accept your punishment. Huff huff, streams of light suddenly flew out of his body and flew out of the prison cell through the gaps. This was a signal for help. As long as he could contact his right-hand man, he would definitely lead an army to rescue them. He. The evil-looking man laughed strangely. How can a small sect like you withstand my hundreds of thousands of beast army? Ga. Suddenly, his smile froze. This was because the signal for help had flown out of the prison cell and was about to head to Death Valley. However, it hit the barrier and was completely blocked. What? What was going on? Hey! A voice came from beside his ear. The evil-looking man stiffly lowered his head and saw the patriarch of the sect of all time stop in front of him. He smiled innocently and said, I heard that you are not human. Chapter 732. Looking at Jun Changxiao's harmless smile, the evil man suddenly shuddered, and a strong ominous feeling surged in his heart. Even when facing the four Wuxing back then, even when being sealed, he did not have such a thought. Could it be, this human is not simple? The noble evil man was fearless, and said, how can I be a lowly human? After getting the answer, Jun Changxiao's eyes suddenly lit up. Being able to speak human language and take human form, this was definitely a high-level spirit beast. If he could subdue it, it would be good to guard the door. This guy had many contract beasts. However, now that it took the initiative to come to his door, and its strength was comparable to a high-level Wu Huang, how could he not want it? I was wondering. Su Xiaoma suddenly realized, no wonder it can take a beating so well. Beasts had a unique advantage in defense, it was normal for it to not die after taking a direct hit from the cannonball. Hey! Jun Changshao said, the light that flew out just now was a distress signal. The evil man did not speak. He was quite arrogant just now, but when the signal was not sent out, he immediately became listless. An army of hundreds of thousands of beasts. Jun Changshao touched his chin and guessed, could it be that you are also a leader of the beasts, and can mobilize your own kind? The evil man said coldly, if I send out the signal, your sect of all times will be razed to the ground by an army of hundreds of thousands in less than a day. From these words, Jun Changshao confirmed his judgment, and the light in his eyes became more and more intense. A spirit beast with subordinates. And, it seemed that there were many of them. If he could subdue it, wouldn't he be able to control more beasts? At that time, each member of the Wolf Rider Hall would be equipped with a mount, and they could destroy whoever they did not like. Thinking of this, Jun Changshao sat on the chair again, crossed his legs, and said, become my contract beast, and I will spare your life. Contract beast? The evil man laughed, and immediately said with a serious expression, beasts will never be slaves. Is that so? Jun Changshao also smiled. His smile was very sinister. He did not continue to torture the evil man. Instead, he returned to his study and began to think about how to subdue this fellow. It would be perfect if there was a high-ranked gold palm ball, Jun Changshao said to himself. It was a little difficult to subdue humans. However, since it was a beast, he could easily deal with it by throwing a gate palm ball at it. Shwa! Jun Changshao pulled open the advanced merchant shop and looked carefully. However, he did not find the sect leader ball, so he said helplessly, "What should we do?" The system said, "The host can refresh mid-tier stores. If you're lucky, you might be able to get one. I might as well give it a try." Jun Changshao clicked on the intermediate shop and began to refresh. 10 minutes later. He leaned weakly against the chair and said, "This is too much of a fucking trap." He spent 5,000 contribution points, but other than buying some daily necessities, he didn't get the gate palm orb. Don't be discouraged. The system said, "I've still saved a lot of contribution points for the host. Go ahead and refresh them. They'll definitely be refreshed." Scram, Jun Changshao said. After knowing that the evil man was not a human, Jun Changshao ordered Jin Dejuan to set up multiple formations outside the prison to prevent that guy from escaping. Zhao Daodu, who was hiding inside, wanted to cry but had no tears. So this guy was not a human, but a very powerful spirit beast. If his injuries recovered a little, his beast nature would erupt and he would kill him. Wouldn't that be a tragedy? Damn it! The evil man lay paralyzed on the ground, clenched his fists with difficulty, and said, "If I don't destroy this sect, this king will not be a beast." Although the signal was not sent out, it was not worried at all. When his subordinates realized that he had not returned, they would definitely come to rescue him. What if they didn't come? It didn't matter. As long as he was still alive, as long as he was still breathing. No matter how serious his injuries were, they could heal on their own. At that time, who would be able to restrain him? Wang. Late at night, the evil man's body emitted a weak light that spread to every inch of his skin and gradually healed his injuries. Zhao Daodu, who was hiding in the corner, bit his 10 fingers, his eyes filled with fear. The next day. The evil man's injuries had recovered quite well, and he already had the ability to sit up. Then, he looked at Zhao Daodu coldly, his eyes flashing with a ruthless aura that only berserk beasts would have. Gulp. Zhao Daodu swallowed his saliva, then grabbed the bars and shouted, "Jun Patriarch, can you change my cell? I don't want to die." Creak. At this moment, the door opened. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei walked in, then tied the evil man up with chains and took him away. Phew. Zhao Daodu let out a long sigh of relief. Back mountain. The evil man was tied to a wooden stake. 100 feet in front of him, Xiao Ziji had already picked up the god-modified RPG rocket launcher. Pa! Pulling the trigger, the shell suddenly shook the space and shot out at the fastest speed. The evil man's pupils contracted. Boom, billowing white smoke rose. Creak. Not long after, the cell door opened again. The evil man, whose body was charred black, was thrown in, lying on the ground like a dead dog. Zhao Daodu, who had just relaxed, saw this and immediately howled in his heart, "Why did you send him in again?" At night. The evil man's self-healing ability was activated again. But the next day, he was pulled out again and was bombarded again. This cycle repeated over and over again, causing him to be unable to completely recover. Patriarch. In the main hall, Li Qingyang said worriedly, "Since that guy is a spirit beast and has a beast army, we must be on guard." Makes sense. Jun Changshao ordered Jin Deshuai to set up multiple lightning arrays at the foot of the mountain. Then, he ordered Shui Rengui to let the members of the Wolf Rider Hall enter a state of alert, ready for any unexpected situation. Patriarch. One day, Li Luoqiu hurried over and said, "I just received news that a large number of berserk beasts have entered Death Valley these few days, and all the warriors who went in to train have no news." Oh. Jun Changshao was quite surprised. Ding. Side mission triggered. Another mission. Jun Changshao opened the system panel. The mission was, the beast army will soon attack the sect, rescue the Purple King, the host needs to lead the disciples to defend the position, elite mission. The beast army will attack. Jun Changshao frowned. Could it be that the berserk beasts that entered Death Valley are that guy's subordinates? Wait a minute. The Purple King. Why does it sound so familiar? Damn. Jun Changshao suddenly remembered what Feng Fei Sha had said before. His expression was very interesting as he said, that guy is the miserable demon that was sealed before he could succeed? No. That was an existence that many Wuxing sealed. How could it be so weak? How could it be captured by me so easily? What's more, it was an ambitious demon, which could be seen from the army that was previously gathered to fight with the humans. Now that it had escaped from the seal, it would definitely make a comeback. If I capture it, wouldn't it be the same as, inadvertently saving the people from the fire and water? The arrival of the side mission not only revealed the evil man's identity, but also warned in advance that the berserk beasts would attack the sect of all times. Such a spoiler was simply insane. Death Valley. More and more berserk beasts gathered, and the number had already reached hundreds of thousands. However, their king had not returned. Big brother, the sect of all times won the Dragon Tiger battle for supremacy. They are very strong. I'm afraid the king is in trouble. A spirit beast said. Swoosh. Swoosh. At this moment, streams of light pierced through the sky and flew into Death Valley, entering the glabella of a few spirit beasts. The spirit beasts exclaimed in unison, our king has been captured by the sect of all times. Go. The right-hand spirit beast said with a murderous aura, go and save the king. Roar. Roar. On this day, hundreds of thousands of berserk beasts rushed out of Death Valley, rushing towards the sect of all times like a tide, and their roars shook the heavens and earth. Chapter 733. Sect Master Jun had unwittingly saved the world. If the relevant departments in charge of this matter were unable to find the purple craggy demon king, the entire continent would be plunged into a bloodbath once it recovered its strength and charged out with its underlings. However, the price of doing a good deed without leaving a name was that the beast army would not attack others. Instead, they would target the sect of all times. Come on, come on. Jun Changshao sat in the main hall, holding the side of his face with one hand. Whether or not I can complete the side quest, it all depends on you guys. Patriarch. Shui Rengui walked in wearing his armor and cupped his hands. The defensive line has been set up, and the villagers along the way from Death Valley to Iron Bone Mountain have been evacuated and settled down properly. Yes. Jun Changshao nodded, and then with a thought, he temporarily closed the sect protecting Great Sect, and only saw a few streams of light that had been blocked, finally flew out and flew towards Death Valley. Everything was ready. They were just waiting for them to attack. Although there was a mission component, this kind of action of using one's own sect to fight against the beast army was truly worthy of respect. Heh. He. Feeling that the distress signal he released had flown away, the Purple King, who was lying in the cell, suddenly laughed strangely. However, because it involved his injuries, his smile was abnormally sinister. Sect of all times. Your end is coming. At the foot of the mountain. Thousands of Wolf Rider Hall members were already in position. They were wearing armor, holding excellent weapons and equipment, and exuding an aura of a veteran. Without a doubt. During this period of time, under the training of Shui Rengui and Tao Yuan, the members of Wolf Rider Hall had not only increased in number, but also in strength. Of course. Jun Changshao would not only let Wolf Rider Hall fight against the incoming beast army, but also mobilize the entire sect's strength. More than 10,000 disciples were all arranged at the front line. Senior brother. Long Xiang scratched his head and said, why does it feel like there's going to be a war? Li Qingyang said, I heard from Patriarch that there might be a strong enemy coming soon. A strong enemy? Long Xiang's face turned serious. Mobilizing the entire sect's strength, this matter was definitely not simple. On Mount Iron Bone, Xiao Ziji had already summoned the field artillery and placed it in the cannon firing area. It could be said that, the Sect of all times had already entered level 1 combat readiness before the Death Valley Beast Army had even received the king's distress signal. Although they were few in number, with all kinds of equipment and firearms, the combat power they could unleash would definitely be terrifying. Even if Xinjiang County mobilized all their troops, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. Furthermore, the strongest part of the Sect of all times was not the various firearms and cannons, but the hundreds of martial king disciples. When humans fought humans, they couldn't fight. Humans were naturally not restricted from fighting beasts. It was no wonder that Jun Changshao did not panic at all after receiving the side quest. From his point of view, the beast army attacking the Sect of all times in order to save the Purple King was just giving them experience points and crystal cores. Boom boom boom. About 4 hours later, the disciples of the Sect of all times heard the sound of the earth shaking. Then, they saw dust billowing in the distance, like a monstrous wave rising from the sea. "It's here," Li Qingyang said with a solemn expression. "Oh my God." Long Xiang stared with his eyes wide open, such a big commotion. Zhou Yi shook his head, picked up the cloud-piercing blade that was stabbed into the ground with one hand, and shouted, "Prepare for battle." Shua! Shua! 2,000 members of the Wolf Rider Hall raised their conqueror spears. After strict training, they would not be afraid of any battlefield. They only had the thought of going to the battlefield to kill the enemy. Jun Changshao, who was sitting in front of the mountain gate, waved his hand and said, "Carry that guy down." "Yes sir." Su Xiaoma and Li Fei dragged the Purple King down the mountain and tied him up in the life and death arena. Roar! Roar! As the monstrous dust rolled over, a furious roar rang out, and the entire space seemed to tremble. At this point, the disciples of the Sect of all times realized that the so-called strong enemy was not humans, but a herd of beasts. Exciting! This is too exciting! Long Xiang and the other inner disciples' eyes flashed with passion. The beasts killed in the life and death secret realm were just illusions. But now, they could fight against a herd of beasts with real weapons. It was definitely a different feeling. Boom! Boom! Dozens of half-human spiritual beasts rushed at the front of the team. Their strength was at least comparable to a martial king, and a few of them were even comparable to Wu Huang. Kakik! The Purple King, who was tied up in the life and death arena, saw his right-hand men leading the charge and laughed strangely again. Stupid humans! He suppressed the pain all over his body and said with a ferocious face, "Accept your punishment." Roar! Roar! The tide of beasts rushed over quickly. However, when the leading spiritual beast saw that its king was tied up, it stopped in its tracks. The rest of the beasts also stopped. For a moment, looking down from the sky, the scene was that the tide of beasts and the disciples of the Sect of all times were 100 feet apart. The atmosphere was tense. "King!" the spiritual beast roared. Many beasts raised their heads and roared, as if they were crying for the wounded the Purple King. "Hey, hey!" A loud voice sounded. Jun Changshao was holding a megaphone. After testing the sound, he said loudly, "Your king has been captured. If you don't want it to die, put down your weapons and surrender." The side mission was to defend the Sect of all times. If they were persuaded to surrender, it would be considered completed. Swoosh! Su Xiaoma took out his true yang sword and placed it on the Purple King's neck. This move was very effective. The dozens of spiritual beasts standing at the front became nervous when they saw that their king's life was in danger. "My people!" At this moment, the Purple King shouted, "Back then, even Wu Xing couldn't hurt this king. How can this bunch of trash do it?" That's right. Their king's body was so strong that even Wu Xing couldn't kill it. He could only seal it. How could it be hurt by a sword? The beasts regained their fighting spirit and burst out with even stronger hostility. My people! The Purple King roared, although this king has been captured, you must remember that the beasts will never be slaves. The last 4 words were so loud that his voice cracked. One had to admit that this guy's body was really strong. After being bombarded several times, he could still shout loudly. The beasts will never be slaves. The right-hand spiritual beast clenched his fists tightly and said with a ferocious expression, Go! Roar! Roar! The beasts roared angrily and rushed over with red eyes. More than 100,000 beasts moved together. Not only was it like a surging wave, but it also shook the ground. Swoosh! Tao Yuan stood on the high ground and waved the war flag. After Zhong Yi received the order, he raised his sword, break through the enemy lines, only death, kill, swoosh. Swoosh! The hurricane wolves started to run. The entire Iron Bone Mountain seemed to have turned into a cruel battlefield as the humans and beasts charged. Qingyang City. When Xie Guangquan received the news, he jumped up from his chair and said in shock, The beasts are attacking the Sect of all times? Quick, quick! He hurriedly ordered, Send the army to support them. At the same time, the other city lords also received the news of hundreds of thousands of beasts attacking the Sect of all times. Therefore, they sent the warriors of their cities to support them. In an instant, the 8 cities of Qingyang County were all mobilized. Meanwhile, in the farthest Zhongzuan province, when the beasts rushed out of the Death Valley, the globe-like sphere in the ancient altar trembled violently. Not good. An old man in charge of guarding it said in shock, There's a beast riot in southwest Yangzhou. To make the Earth Spirit Sphere give off such a strong warning, it must be the Purple King's doing. Damn it! The person in charge of the altar said angrily, This demonic creature actually escaped from the northern desert province to southwest Yangzhou and began to wreak havoc in such a short time. It should have completely recovered by now. Quickly contact Mu Changheng of southwest Yangzhou. Tell him to hold on until reinforcements arrive no matter what. Yes. Contact the city lords of the West Cloud Province and South Baron Province. Tell them to send experts to reinforce as soon as possible. Yes. Contact City Lord Han and tell him to head to southwest Yangzhou immediately. Yes. Announce to the 5th class and above that the Starfall continent has entered a state of alert. Tell the 3rd class and above to send their elite disciples to southwest Yangzhou immediately. Yes. The person in charge of the altar issued several orders in succession. From the extremely fast speed of his speech, the situation was very critical and urgent. Buzz! Heavenly Mandate Imperial City, City Lord's Mansion. Mu Changheng, who was sipping on his tea, suddenly heard a voice. He jumped up from his seat and exclaimed, The purple craggy monster king has broken the seal and is leading a horde of beasts to attack our southwestern Yangzhou city? City Lord. At this moment, an array master hurried in and said, According to the transmission from the altar of Zhongzuan State, the beasts are rioting at Mount Iron Bone in Qingyang County. This is troublesome. Mu Changheng immediately took off and sped toward Qingyang County. Yi Tianxing, the owner of the Certification Institute, and Situ Haoyun, the dean of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, went with him. Both of them had also received the news from the altar. In the 2 imperial cities of South Baron Province and West Cloud Province, Wuhuang cultivators flew out one after another. What's going on? Many warriors were surprised. With so many Wuhuang cultivators flying out together, something must have happened. Sect leader. In the Tsangshan sect, Ma Yunteng rushed over and said, The altar sent news that the Purple King has appeared and is leading a herd of beasts to attack Qingyang County. What? The Tsangshan sect leader's eyes widened. Whoosh! Whoosh! Ma Yunteng, Wang Donglin, and the other elders of the Tsangshan sect flew down the mountain gate and sped toward Qingyang County. Although the altar didn't say that the fifth-rate sects would provide reinforcements, they were allies with the sect of all times. If Qingyang County was rioting, they would definitely help. Shi Jingxian of Miaohua Palace also received the news and said, the beasts are attacking Qingyang City. June Patriarch's sect will definitely be affected. First elder, second elder. She hurriedly ordered, go and provide reinforcements. Yes. Although Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue hated Jun Changshao, they couldn't sit back and do nothing when the altar sent news that the beasts were rioting. June Patriarch. Chapter 734. The Earth Spirit Instrument had issued a high-energy warning, which meant that there was a large-scale beast riot. The person in charge of the altar firmly believed that only the Purple King could do this. Since it dared to attack, it meant that it had completely recovered from the seal. If so, the situation was very serious. The news of the Purple King's reappearance spread to all the states and forces, and the whole continent became very nervous. If it was just a beast riot, they would not be so worried. The main reason was that the demonic creature was very powerful. Many Wu Sheng had failed to kill it back then, and now that it had made a comeback, the whole continent would be plunged into misery and suffering. So, after receiving the news from the altar, all the sects and powerhouses were mobilized. Everyone was responsible for the rise and fall of the continent. Just as the whole world became nervous and mobilized, Jun Changshao, who was at the scene of the beast riot, was leisurely eating his fried rice. He could not be blamed. He did not know that the powerhouses were coming to help, and he was really hungry. Bang! Suddenly, the field cannon on the mountain fired. The shell dragged a stream of light and drew a beautiful arc, accurately landing in the midst of the charging beasts. Boom! The power of the explosion swept the surroundings, rolling up gusts of wind. Pfft! Jun Changshao spat out the fried rice in his mouth. His eyelids rolled up as he leaned against the back of the chair, and a buzzing sound came from his ears. The side effect of using the Heaven and Earth talisman was still there, and he did not have any cultivation now. The young man who wore sunglasses to spy on him had also mistakenly said that he was flying over the mountain gate. Huff huff, the dust dissipated, and a deep crater appeared in the explosion area. Tens of thousands of dire beasts had died tragically. The Purple King, who was tied up in the life and death arena, suddenly widened his eyes. What was that? It could explode with such a terrifying power. Bang! Xiao Ziji fired again. The shell dragged a stream of light as it flew over the Purple King and landed in the midst of the beasts again. Boom! The second shell exploded again, using power to explain the art of explosion. After the two shells, countless dire beasts were killed. Broken limbs, blood, and crystal cores were scattered everywhere. The air was filled with a nauseating smell. Kill! Zhong Yi bellowed angrily and charged forward with his men. Puchi! Puchi! The members of the Wolf Rider Hall immediately clashed with the incoming horde of beasts, their sharp spearheads mercilessly killing everything in their path. Among the beasts that came to rescue the Purple King, apart from his right-hand spirit beasts, who were relatively strong, the rest were nothing more than a ragtag army that had been temporarily formed. They had been hastily gathered in Death Valley, so their battle prowess could be imagined. Of course. No matter how messy they were still stronger than the White Tiger Corps of the past. However, in the past few years of development, the Sect of All Times Wolf Rider Hall's strength had increased by leaps and bounds, and it was easy for them to take care of such miscellaneous soldiers. Puchi! Puchi! Zhong Yi led his troops like an indestructible spear, ruthlessly tearing through the beast tide. Then, he turned the spearhead and continued to kill his way back. Although their strength was formidable and they were unstoppable, there were simply too many ferocious beasts. After this charge, a large number of ferocious beasts had already approached the defensive line. Boom! Boom! At the same time, an explosive sound came from the sky. Powerful psionic energy and explosive hostility came wantonly. A few Emperor-level spirit beasts had already started fighting with the evil Saint of Five Treasures in the sky. In terms of numbers, they had the advantage, but their opponent was Wu Sheng. Although they were only Emperor-level cultivators, they could still contend with him with ease. The spirit beasts that were comparable to king-level spirit beasts in the army of beasts had also been stopped by the F4 of the Sect of all times and lured out of the battlefield for a fierce battle. In terms of high-level combat strength, the Sect of all times was not inferior to this group of beasts. Moreover, Little Long Long and Xiao Maxian had yet to fight, and the Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace was still sweeping the ground in the outer courtyard. Jun Changshao put on his ears and said, "Other than their numbers, their strength is really weak. I'm afraid they've lost their minds to attack our Sect of all times." He was a little smug. It was also the Purple King's fault for being too arrogant. He thought that a fifth-rate sect was very weak and came alone, but in the end, he was reduced to a prisoner. If he had first retreated in Death Valley to recover his strength, and deployed more and more powerful beasts, the situation would definitely be different when he came to ask for the eggs. One wrong move. He had lost the whole game. Damn it, the Purple King, who was tied to the life and death arena, watched his people fall one by one, and his eyes gradually turned red. Roar! Roar! The beasts rushed over without caring about their lives. They didn't have intelligence, but they only had one thought in their minds, and that was to save the king. Boom! 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 However, when they were about to approach the defensive line of the Sect of all times, the space suddenly shook, and thunder attributes splashed out, causing a series of explosions. Zhen Dejuan covered his face with one hand and laughed strangely with his shoulders shaking. Art comes from explosions. Seeing that tens of thousands of his clansmen had died, the Purple King's eyes gradually became bloodshot, and the anger in his heart had reached its peak. However, there was nothing he could do. Because of the continuous bombardment, his body was still seriously injured. Give up. Su Xiaoma, who was standing at the side in charge of guarding, shook his head and said, "If we let them continue to rush over, they will only make unnecessary sacrifices." This was a kind reminder. Because the Sect of all times had a large number of Martial King-level disciples who had not made a move yet. It was undeniable that there were many beasts attacking the Sect of all times, but under the suppression of the top forces, the low-level beasts were definitely like Calabash brothers saving their grandfather. One by one, one by one, one by one. Roar! The beasts that crossed the thunder array with the bodies of their companions were still charging angrily, and they were getting closer and closer to the defensive line. Swish! Swish! The Sect of all times disciples at the front raised their AK-47s. Although there was a monthly purchase limit for this weapon, Jun Changshao would buy it as soon as the cooldown was off, and then distribute it to the Drizzle Hall. Now, the number was close to 100. A group of 100 people guarding the life and death arena formed a line in front of them, and there was a dense pack of beasts charging over from the opposite side. The scene was very vivid. Roar! Roar! The beasts were still charging forward dauntlessly. Fire! Da-da-da! Da-da-da! It was as if an endless stream of photon bullets were shooting over, either piercing the heads of the beasts or turning them into beehives. The scene was extremely tragic. Plop! Plop! The beasts fell one by one, and the following beasts took their place. They relied on the beast tide tactic to attack the defensive line, all for the sake of saving their king. Li Qingyang and the others stood behind the defensive line and did not make a move. Because at the moment, although the beasts were not afraid of death and were charging forward dauntlessly, under the suppression of firepower, they might not be able to reach the defensive line. Boom! Boom! In mid-air, the evil Saint of Five Ultimates completely unleashed his cultivation. Evil Chi filled his hands, and he was evenly matched with several Emperor-level spirit beasts. On the other side, Jiang Ye and the other three had successfully restrained more than 20 martial kings, so that they could not help the beasts break through the defensive line at all. Whoosh! Whoosh! On the sentry tower behind the defensive line, the Drizzle Hall members were equipped with AWMs and Type 88 sniper rifles, and they were accurately killing the beasts in the herd. In a short time, the Beast Tribe army suffered heavy casualties. Judging from the current situation, they were charging forward dauntlessly like moths to a flame. Don't you think it's cruel to let your subordinates die like this? Jun Changshao walked over and stopped in front of the Purple King. He put the blunderbuss next to its mouth and said, "If I were you, I wouldn't let the tragedy continue." The Purple King clenched its fists tightly, and the anger in its heart was indescribable. However, after seeing its subordinates and people fall one by one in the charge, it still roared unwillingly, "Stop." Chapter 735. Stop! The Purple King's weak voice was amplified through the loudspeaker and resounded throughout the entire Iron Bone Mountain. For a moment, the beasts that were charging forward stopped. The dozens of high-level spirit beasts that were fighting with the evil Saint of Five Ultimates looked at their king in shock. The Purple King lowered his head, and Jun Changshao moved the loudspeaker down. A moment later, a voice filled with unwillingness and anger was heard, "All of you, get lost." Beasts would never be slaves. But they would not make unnecessary sacrifices. This small fifth-rate sect had great power, forcing the Purple King to give up his attack. "King!" His right hand and right-hand spirit beasts shouted. It and its kind did not care about death. As long as they could save their king, it did not matter even if they had to bleed to the last drop of blood. "Get lost." The Purple King's voice was slightly weak, but there was no doubt about it. The king's order was an imperial edict, and it had to be obeyed. So the right-hand spirit beast gritted its teeth and said, "Retreat." Roar! Roar! The remaining 100,000 beasts roared in grief, then dropped their battle bodies and retreated. The Patriarch did not give the order, and the disciples of the Sect of all times did not take advantage of the victory to pursue. In a short time, only the corpses of the beasts that had died tragically were left on the battlefield, as well as the crystal cores that had not been completely trampled. This battle between humans and beasts started quickly and ended quickly as well. Because of the great disparity in strength. Ding! Side quest completed. Host has received 10,000 contribution points. Ding! Contribution points. 19960200000. Ding! Congratulations to host for completing the side quest. You have received the hidden reward of a high-grade Gate Master's Ball X1, Experience Talisman X2. After hearing the reward, Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. He was worried that he could not subdue the Purple King, and the quest immediately rewarded him with a high-grade Gate Master's Ball. This was really timely help. Bring it back to the sect. Jun Changxiao shouted. Yes. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei dragged the Purple King away. The latter angrily said, "Darn humans, this king will remember this." As a noble beast, even if it was captured, even if its subordinates were defeated, it still had to say what it had to say. Otherwise, it would lose a lot of face. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, "I'll let you eat fried rice later." Patriarch. Li Qingyang walked over and said, "Many crystal cores have been crushed. There are only 20 to 30,000 left. It's all right." Jun Changxiao glanced at the corpses on the ground and said, "Skin, bones, whatever you can." Yes. Li Qingyang was just about to order his fellow disciples to take action when he saw Xie Guangquan and the others leading a large group of cultivators rushing over. They were the closest to the sect of all times, so naturally, they were the first to arrive. However, when they saw the ground full of ferocious beast corpses, they were all dumbstruck. "Thank you, City Lord." Jun Changshao said, "Why are you all here?" Xie Guankuan came back to his senses and said, "Jun Patriarch, I received news that a beast horde is attacking the sect of all times, so I brought the army here to help." "You're too late. They've already been defeated," Jun Changshao said, but he was very touched. After all, this was a true friend in need. Xie Guankuan's mouth twitched. From the time they received the news to the time they gathered reinforcements, it was less than an hour. It was said that hundreds of thousands of ferocious beasts were defeated. This was too fast. Swoosh! 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 At this moment, Mu Changhong, Yi Tianqing, and Situ Haoyun landed in the arena of life and death. They looked at the ground full of ferocious beast corpses in a daze. They knew the severity of the situation better than Xie Guankuan, so when they did not see any living ferocious beast, they asked in unison, "Where's the beast horde?" "It's been taken care of," Jun Changshao said. Xie Guankuan and the other city lords were very close to him, so it was normal for them to know about the beast horde's attack. How did these cultivators in the heavenly mandate royal city know? Whoosh, the space trembled, and City Lord Han appeared out of thin air. His aura exploded, and it was clear that he was ready for a fight. But when he saw the corpses of ferocious beasts all over Mount Ironbone, and saw that there was not a single living ferocious beast, and saw that the disciples of the sect of all times were being skinned and deboned, the expression on his face gradually froze. "City Lord Han," Jun Changshao said in surprise, "why are you here?" City Lord Han had been in battle for a long time, so he quickly calmed down and said, "The beast horde is rioting and harming the people. I'm here to help." Jun Changshao, it was just a group of small fries. Even Wu Sheng was alarmed. This was making a mountain out of a molehill. "Jun Patriarch," City Lord Han said, "what about the demons?" As he spoke, he exuded an aura of self-sacrifice. In this era where martial emperors no longer cared about worldly affairs, as Wu Sheng, he had to take responsibility. Demons? Were they referring to the Purple King? Whoosh! Whoosh! Not long after, the elders of the Tsangshan sect, led by Ma Yunteng, also rushed over. They had come with the determination to live and die with the sect of all times. In the end, they did not see the beast horde and were all stunned on the spot. Seeing so many people coming to support, Jun Changshao immediately realized that there must be something fishy going on, so he hurriedly asked Mu Changhong in a low voice. When he learned that a very powerful department in the Zhongzhuang state had captured the beast horde rioting and contacted the major sects to issue a level 1 alert, his expression immediately became interesting. "Oh please! Was there a need to mobilize such a group of beasts?" Jun Changshao could not understand because he did not know how strong the Purple King was at his peak. Whoosh! Whoosh! Not long after, the experts of the Western Cloud State and the Southern Barren State rushed over one after another. After seeing the ferocious beast corpses all over the ground, they were collectively dumbfounded. The altar had released the news as quickly as possible, making it seem like a great disaster was imminent. They had rushed over in a hurry, but the situation was not as serious as they had imagined. Naturally, they were devastated. 2 hours later, many experts gathered at the foot of the Iron Bone Mountain. It could be said that they were a gathering of heroes. However, when they confirmed that the beast horde had been killed and retreated, they stood in the same place in a mess. The altar was also depressed. Because after the beast horde retreated, the earthly spirit instrument suddenly stopped trembling. Why did it stop? Several elders were stunned. At this moment, the leader received a message from City Lord Han. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. "We were wrong. It was not the Purple King who led the army here. It was a small group of beasts that were agitated and have been annihilated by the sect of all times." No way. Everyone was devastated. Maybe the spatial vibration from the great sage's imperial city last time affected the earthly spirit instrument, so its warning is too sensitive, the leader analyzed. That's possible. The others agreed. Pass down the order, lift the level 1 alert, and remind all forces that the news of the Purple King's reappearance is not to be spread casually to avoid causing panic, the leader said. Yes. Iron Bone Mountain, Life and Death Arena. Looking at the experts flying in the sky and standing below, Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said, "My sect of all times is in trouble, and all of you have come to help." This Jun is really grateful. The corners of the experts' mouths twitched. Who the hell is here to help you? We are here to help the entire continent. However, Jun Changshao said again, this is indeed a small group of beasts that came to attack. They were very weak and have been destroyed by my sect of all times. Please don't be nervous. He would not tell anyone about the Purple King. After all, he still had to subdue it for his own use, so he could only minimize the problem. All right. The city lord of the West Cloud State Imperial City said, we came for nothing. Let's go, let's go. Since the Purple King was not wreaking havoc in the world, they would not stay for long. Dojo Master Yi. Just as Yi Tianxing was about to leave, Jun Changshao smiled and said, the battle of dragons and tigers is over. As for the spirit stones. Chapter 736. All the powerhouses rushed over, but the situation was not as serious as they imagined, so they left without staying. Of course. Before leaving, they did not forget to inquire about the sect of all times. This sect that rose like a comet gave them a very mysterious feeling, so they naturally wanted to know more about it. Unfortunately, as soon as their spiritual senses surged toward Mount Iron Bone, they were mercilessly bounced back by the array. The array master, Zhen Dejuan, did not only know how to use explosions as art. Ever since he started researching the Chiman 32 arrays, he had long set up an isolation array around the sect to prevent others from peeping with their spiritual senses. Since it's not the Purple King who is causing trouble, I'll take my leave first. City Lord Han cupped his hands and said. Jun Changshao took the space ring with a large number of spirit stones from Yi Tianxing and said, City Lord Han, it's not easy for you to come here. Why don't you stay for a meal before leaving? Wu Sheng was a powerhouse. If he could make friends, he naturally had to. The imperial city is busy, so there's no need for Jun Patriarch to spend money. City Lord Han cupped his hands, then got up and flew away. City Lord Mu, stay for a meal. Jun Changshao looked at City Lord Mu. The latter shook his head and said, another day. Therefore, the powerhouses that existed in Mount Iron Bone quickly left, but they were muttering in their hearts. It was clearly a small group of low-level ferocious beasts that invaded. The altar was making a fuss over nothing. After watching everyone leave, Jun Changshao also muttered to himself, the Purple King should be capable. Otherwise, why would the powerhouses of the entire continent be so nervous? However, it was too weak to be knocked down with one shot. Or could it be that that guy had been sealed for too long and its strength had not reached its peak, so it thought that the sect of all times was easy to bully and came looking for trouble with its head held high? If that's the case. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, it's really going to fight to the death before it even has a chance to win. Of course. Thousands of years ago, so many ferocious beasts had gathered to go all out, but they were all killed before they could even take action. Now that he had made a comeback, he hadn't even recovered his cultivation and summoned all of his underlings before he was reduced to a prisoner. The Purple King, who had been locked up in his cell again, lamented with tears in his eyes, why is it so difficult for this king to accomplish something great? Creak. The door opened again. Su Xiaoma walked in first and neatly arranged the chairs. Jun Changshao sat down elegantly and crossed his legs, interlocking his fingers, and said with a smile, are you convinced? Submit my ass. The Purple King raged. Even though it had been captured, even though its underlings had been defeated, it was still unwilling to accept this, because it was not in its most powerful state. Otherwise, it would definitely be able to crush this human and his sect. Jun Chengshao said with a solemn expression, "You are a monster king who wants to do great things, and I am also a person who wants to do great things. If we join forces, we will definitely be able to achieve great things." Ding! Your good friend, Deputy Director Jun of the Strategic Deception Bureau, is online. Bah! The Purple King said hatefully, "You humans are cunning and sinister. This king has to help you count the money after being sold. How can I work with you?" Jun Chengshao said seriously, "You have the strongest body, and I have the strongest brain. If we join forces, we can really do whatever we want in the Falling Star continent." He was not in a hurry to use the gate palm ball, because if he could persuade it to surrender with words, he could save it. However, the Purple King said firmly, "I will be your spring autumn dream." Yes. Keep dreaming. Sigh. Jun Chengshao stood up and said, "Since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being rude." Swoosh. The high-ranked gate palm ball appeared in his hand, and he made a dashing throwing gesture, saying, "Say it smells good." Bang! The gate palm ball hit the Purple King's head directly, but nothing happened. Huh! Jun Chengshao was stunned. He picked up the gate palm ball and shouted again, "Go, gate palm ball." Bang! It hit Purple Chestnut's head again, but still nothing happened. Fuck! Jun Chengshao broke down and said, "Why not?" Bang! 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 He hit it a few more times, and finally lay on the chair, panting, shouting in his heart, "What's going on?" The system said, "In theory, the Purple King is only at the Emperor level, so it should be able to be subdued directly." The fact that the host has failed repeatedly shows that its true strength is beyond the range of the high-ranked gate palm ball. Jun Chengshao broke down. "I was given a gate palm ball for completing the mission, but I can't subdue it. What's the use of being a protagonist?" The system said, "Shouldn't the host be laughing?" "Why should I laugh? If the high-ranked gate palm ball can't be subdued, it means that its level is very high. If you can subdue it for your own use, it will definitely be a very powerful fighter." This sentence instantly reminded Jun Chengshao, and he suddenly changed from a collapsed state to a sinister smile and said, "That makes sense." Seeing him suddenly show a strange smile, the Purple King's heart suddenly shuddered, and he secretly said, "Don't tell me I have some disgusting fetish. Are you hungry?" Jun Chengshao said gently. Hungry? Even if this king was really hungry, how could he say it out loud? Xiao Mu. Jun Chengshao said, "Go and ask Dudu to cook a few dishes and bring 2 jars of wine. This king wants to get drunk with this warrior today." Yes. Su Xiaoma left quickly. Not long after. 1 black and 2 black prepared the table, and then put all kinds of delicious food and 2 jars of old wine. These dishes were very hard, all of them were meat. Warrior. Jun Chengshao said, "Since you are a beast, this king has prepared more meat dishes." Humph. The Purple King sneered and said, "This king prefers to eat human meat. It's a pity that I'm not Tang Seng, otherwise I'll cut a piece for you to eat." Jun Chengshao sat down and said, "Untie this warrior." Ka ka ka. The chains were removed, and the Purple King's body staggered a few steps. It seemed that he was really weak. However, he didn't walk over, but coldly said, "Damn human, what tricks are you playing?" Jun Chengshao said, "You are a prisoner. Naturally, you have to eat your fill, so that you can continue to be abused." Jun Patriarch. Zhao Daodu, who was curled up in the corner, smelled the intoxicating fragrance of the dishes and said weakly, "Can I do it too? Take him out and beat him." Ah. Zhao Daodu, who was a hindrance, was taken out, leaving only Jun Chengshao and the Purple King in the cell. One was weak and had no cultivation, while the other was seriously injured and exhausted. They felt like brothers in distress. The fragrance of the food filled the entire cell, crazily attacking the Purple King's unusually sensitive sense of smell, to the extent that he couldn't help but drool. "Come and eat," Jun Chang said with a smile as he picked up his chopsticks and started eating. Seeing that he was smacking his lips, the Purple King swallowed a mouthful of saliva, then turned his head with difficulty, but his body moved over step by step. "Pa!" He sat down and put his left hand on his right wrist, forcibly stopping him from picking up the chopsticks. His expression was unusually fierce and he was struggling. "King! You must hold on." Unfortunately, the self-restraint of beasts was not as good as that of humans. In the end, the Purple King gave in. He picked up a piece of red braised meat with his chopsticks and said angrily, "Stupid human, this king is full and waiting for you to abuse me." Swish! He swallowed it. When the food had just reached his mouth, but before he could chew it, the taste of the food deeply stimulated the Purple King's nerves through his taste buds, making him feel as if he was struck by lightning. His burnt black hair all stood up. In a trance, he felt as if he was running under the setting sun. That was his lost youth. Chapter 737. Berserk beasts were not particular about food and would usually eat raw meat directly. Therefore, the food cooked by Lu Wancher instantly brought a fatal blow to the Purple King. He sat there for a long time without recovering. At that moment, his soul had already flown out and was chasing after his lost youth under the setting sun. "It's done." A smile appeared on Jun Changxiao's face. He was still very confident in the food cooked by Lu Wancher. As long as the other party could eat well, if one time was not enough, he would try a few more times. Let's see how long it could last. Munch munch. The Purple King's soul was tired from running and then began to wolf down the food. It was really too weak and too hungry. In just a moment, the table of delicacies was cleanly eaten by it. Gulp. After drinking half a jar of wine, the Purple King still wanted more and said, "Is there any more?" "Yes, tomorrow." Jun Changxiao snapped his fingers and said, "Little Mo, drag it out and accept the punishment of the cannon." The Purple King. Damn it, it just finished its meal and started to torture without even taking a breath. Its speed was too fast. Boom. The sound of cannons could be heard from the back mountain. Not long after, the Purple King, who was covered in wounds, was dragged back to the cell. Jun Changxiao knew that this guy would definitely be powerful when he was at his peak. Therefore, during the persuasion stage, he had to continue to bombard it so that it could not recover and would always be in a weak state. Xiao Ziji never expected that not only did he find a living target, he also never thought that he could use it to practice every day. This was very comfortable. Swish. Jun Changxiao lay on the chair in the study room and stretched his body. Then, he began to think about more problems, such as the egg that the Purple King mentioned before. Was it obtained from the fire dragon beast and the egg that hatched into the little dragon? Could it be? Jun Changxiao said in surprise, "The egg was laid by it." No, no. That guy is obviously a male, how could it lay an egg? The system said, maybe it has this function. Bullshit. Jun Changxiao absolutely did not believe that the male body had the ability to nurture living creatures. Otherwise, what was the use of the female body? I'll ask him tomorrow. The Purple King definitely had a story behind him. He had to pry it open. Patriarch. Elder Wei walked in and said, "The new batch of herbs has matured." Really? Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up with joy. This batch of mature herbs could be used to concoct Martial King pills. As soon as he put the medicine hall into his spatial ring, he started refining without hesitation. How troublesome. Jun Changxiao rubbed his temples and said, "You have to do this kind of alchemy yourself." The system was speechless. You've been relying on missions and experience talismans to raise your realm the entire time. How can you tire yourself to death doing a little work? Yes. The side mission gave me quite a lot of contribution points. I need to continue using them to make room for the sect mission reward, Jun Changshao murmured. As the sect's construction increased, the upper limit of the number of people would also increase. Therefore, the martial arts facilities had to be continuously expanded. When there were not many contribution points, Jun Changshao would mostly use them to try his luck in the shop. However, since the number of disciples exceeded 10,000, he was more inclined towards the sect's development. This was also normal. After all, it was a sect system. Everything was based on the sect. The next day, Jun Changshao first inspected the construction site, then went to the prison. As usual, he placed food and wine for the Purple King to eat first. This made Xiao Dao to drool, but he could only watch and did not dare to make a sound. During the meal, Jun Patriarch had asked about the egg. However, although the other party ate, he was very principled and did not answer any of his questions. Fine. Let's just kill him. After that, the Purple King could eat a meal cooked by Lu Wancher every day. He was bombarded every day. It could be said that he lived a life of ice and fire. The sect of all times returned to its usual peace. The disciples continued to cultivate and do missions. A few days later, the sect's missions were all completed. The number of people and achievement points reached the standard. The upgrade button appeared in the construction. Upgrade. Ding. The sect's construction is upgraded to level 8. Ding. The upper limit of sect members, contribution points, and achievement points has increased. Ding. The sect's Lingyan Pavilion has been activated. The notification ended, and the system interface changed. Sect name, the strongest sect since ancient times. Sect master, Jun Changxia. Sect level, 5th rate. Sect construction, level 8. Sect functions, medicine refinery pavilion, smithing pavilion. Lingyan Pavilion. Sect cultivation technique, Yi Jin Jing, divine grade low level. Landslide earth shattering fist, top grade high level. Sect members, 20000500000. Sect contribution points, 20000500000. Sect achievement points, 220050000. Sect mission, none at the moment. Sect main mission, within 100 years, seeing the various points increase from 20,000 to 50,000, Jun Changshao almost could not help but dance. After all, he was only half the quota for the main mission. If he were to level up to level 9, it would most likely reach 100,000 points. Calm down, calm down. Jun Changshao took a deep breath and said, we're only halfway there. Don't get carried away too early. Although he said that, he was already squatting down and covering his face. The best thing after the system upgrade was not the increase in the various points, but the new functions. What could this be? Could it be that I can really summon the heroes of the Tang dynasty? Jun Changshao had already started to imagine the scene of summoning Qin Qiong, Qing Yaojin, and other fierce people. It was also possible that the portraits of the 24 heroes could be activated to give him the ability of a famous general. The system said, can you stop wasting time? Hurry up and open it. Okay. Jun Changshao clicked on the Lingyan Pavilion, and a small panel appeared. This new function was similar to a 3D projection space, and there were indeed 24 drawings of nothing. Where are the portraits? Jun Changshao broke down and said, why are there 24 blank pieces of paper? At this moment, he saw a small line of words at the bottom. The content was, this Lingyan Pavilion is modeled after the Tang Dynasty's meritorious official pavilion. The host can also designate 24 disciples of the sect to become the 24 heroes of the sect of all times. If the conditions are met, the disciple will receive a generous reward. Looking further down, there was a list of choices. With a light tap, a dense list of names appeared. The first name was Lu Qianqian, the second name was Li Qingyang, the third name was Su Xiaoma, and so on. From the looks of it, it should be arranged according to the time they entered the sect. I can just choose 24. Jun Changshao clicked on Lu Qianqian's name. Whoosh! The drawings hanging at the top of the Lingyan pavilion gradually showed lines, as if they were automatically drawing. When it was completed, the words Lu Qianqian appeared. Jun Changshao was speechless. He thought that he would have to draw the faces of the disciples, but it turned out that only the names were written. There were still lines on the drawings, and the final content was, merit points, 10,100 points, temporarily ineligible to enter the Lingyan pavilion. Why the fuck do I still need merit points? Didn't you say that I can choose as I wish? Jun Changshao was on the verge of breaking down. The system said, the host only has the right to nominate. Whether or not the host can enter the Lingyan pavilion in the end depends on the disciples' contribution to the sect. I see. Jun Changshao clicked on Li Qingyang's name, and the second piece of white paper gradually showed the content. Li Qingyang, merit points, 8,100 points, temporarily ineligible to enter the Lingyan pavilion. Damn! Jun Changshao said in surprise, my second disciple's merit points are that high. Nonsense. The system said, he's in charge of internal affairs, gives pointers to his fellow disciples, and has been constantly renovating the sect. Such a versatile chief manager definitely has a high contribution to the sect. That's why I say that Qingyang is my favorite. Jun Changshao then clicked on Xiao Ziji and Su Xiaoma. After their names were printed, the merit points displayed were 34 and 31 respectively. The system was speechless. The Lingyan pavilion only has 24 spots. Although the number can be changed at will before the final decision is made, the host can't be so sloppy. They are all core disciples of the sect of all times. How can I be sloppy? As Jun Changshao spoke, he clicked on Yixingqian's name. The other party's merit points were only 6, lower than Lu Qianqian's. How are the merit points calculated? How would I know? Aren't you omnipotent? Have you ever seen an omnipotent system get slapped in the face time and time again? Nope. Chapter 738. Jun Changshao picked a few more disciples, such as Li Fei, Tian Qi, and the others. Their merit points also fluctuated between 10 and 30. They were still far from reaching the full value. It doesn't seem to be of any use. Jun Changshao frowned. In the past, its function was to refine pills, forge, or directly refine talismans. This function was to nominate 24 disciples. It didn't seem to be of any substantial help to him. The system said, didn't I say that disciples who meet the requirements to stay in the Lingyan pavilion will receive generous rewards? But, how do I get merit points? Slowly figure it out. Jun Changshao couldn't be bothered to speak. He pulled down the list of disciples and locked onto Shengguan Xiniao's name. Thus, he said, let's see how many merit points this girl has. The reason he had this idea was that this girl had created many martial arts techniques. Damn! After the name and value appeared, Jun Changshao said in surprise, she actually has 60 merit points. The system said, this girl created many half-completed mental cultivation techniques and helped the host buy martial arts techniques from the technique pavilion. Perhaps that's why she has so many merit points. So, only those who contribute greatly to themselves and the sect will have merit points increased? Jun Changshao said. Nonsense. The system said, definitely. Let me think about it. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and pondered. According to his deduction, this merit point increase was definitely complicated. If the disciples wanted to obtain it, they had to do something meaningful for the sect. Li Qingyang's merit point was because he had always been worried sick for the sect. Shangguan Xiniao's merit point was also because she helped him by martial arts techniques so that the sect's disciples could benefit. However, Yi Xingqian had single-handedly won the sect's tournament and made it into the gathering of elites list. Logically speaking, his merit points should be high. Why was it lower than Lu Qianqian's? The system said, maybe winning the tournament only increased the sect's prestige and didn't bring any help to the sect or the disciples. So, it's either nothing or less. That's possible. Jun Changshao agreed. The best proof was Xiao Ziji and Su Xiaoma. The two of them had also participated in the large competition and had also won the championship. However, they were better than Lu Qianqian and Yi Xingqian. Perhaps it was because they were usually willing to help their fellow disciples and were willing to share their martial arts experience. Try He Wudi's. Jun Changshao then placed He Wudi's name on the white paper. His achievement points were displayed at 50 points. You obtained the hidden cultivation technique from him, allowing all the disciples to cultivate it. Is that why it's so high? There's one more thing. When you're not cultivating, you're responsible for closing the door, the system added. That should be it. After a short period of thinking and reasoning, Jun Changshao was more or less certain that merit points increased by serving the sect and bringing benefits to fellow sect members. There was no need to mention Li Qingyang. Ever since he became the number 2 henchman, at least 70% of the things he did were for the sect. Lu Qianqian and Yi Xingqian were people of few words. Because they rarely interacted with the disciples and did not help them much, their achievement points were very low. One of them has 10 points and the other has 6 points. I'm afraid it's also because they participated in various large competitions and won the championship. Otherwise, it would be a big zero, Jun Changshao said. Ding! Suddenly, the number on Yi Xingqian's paper changed from 6 points to 7 points. It increased. Jun Changshao was stunned. In the main hall, Yi Xingqian walked in. Jun Changshao said, Xingqian, what were you busy with just now? I handed in a mission, Yi Xingqian said. Jun Changshao thought to himself, it seems that this is also one of the ways to increase one's achievement points. The missions in the mission pavilion are getting harder and harder. As an inner disciple, you should do more of them when you're free. Okay. Although Yi Xingqian said that, he thought to himself, why would I waste my time on missions? If that was the case, why would he do missions? The main reason was that Li Qingyang had a private conversation with him the day before yesterday. He said, Junior brother Yi, don't just cultivate all day. You can go to the mission pavilion and do missions with your juniors. It's a good way to cultivate your relationship with your fellow disciples. Second's senior brother not only worked hard for the sect, but he also cared about the relationship between his fellow disciples. If he wasn't 98, then who was 98? After an intense battle of thoughts, Yi Xingqian decided to do missions. He accepted a 5-star mission and left alone. Yes. He did not bring his teammates. There was no reason to bring them along. Completing a 5-star mission only gives me 1 achievement point. Jun Changshao thought to himself, if I do more missions, won't it be full soon? I've sinned. In order to confirm his guess, he instructed, don't cultivate for the next 2 days. Go and do missions. Pick a 5-star mission. Yes. Xiao Ziji went to the mission pavilion to accept a 5-star mission. After completing it, his achievement point increased by 1 point. Understood, understood. Jun Changshao grinned and hurriedly called Li Qingyang over. He instructed, don't go to the construction site for now. Go and do 2 5-star missions. Yes. The second disciple got to work. However, to Jun Changshao's disappointment, after he completed 2 5-star missions, his achievement point was still at 98 points. There was no increase. Why isn't it increasing? Jun Changshao broke down. The system said, maybe the 5-star missions can only be increased to a fixed value or there is a limit. Li Qingyang has already reached the limit. Therefore, he will not be rewarded if he completes more missions. That should be the case. Jun Changshao asked Li Qingyang and found out that he had completed countless 5-star missions since the mission pavilion began to issue missions. Most of them followed junior brothers whose cultivation levels were not very high to help them complete the missions faster and more safely. It was not brainless help. During the missions, it was more about imparting experience and letting them face the dangers themselves. It's been hard on you. Jun Changshao patted Li Qingyang on the shoulder. With such a disciple, how could he not like and love her? If Lu Qianqian and Yi Xingqian were like Li Qingyang, contributing selflessly to the sect and being considerate to their fellow disciples, the sect of all times would not have to worry. That scene would definitely not happen. At present, the Lingyan Pavilion that was opened for the sect's construction and upgrade did not provide any substantial help to Jun Changshao. It was only useful for the disciples. It did not matter. Because if the disciples were strong, the sect would be strong. Remember all of them. After the routine morning exercise, Jun Changshao said loudly, in the previous life, you looked back 500 times in exchange for a brush with each other in this life. For all of you to become fellow disciples, you looked back at each other at least a few 100,000 times in the previous life. Therefore, you must cherish each other and love each other. Yes. All the disciples shouted in unison. However, they thought in their hearts that they did not do anything in the previous life and only looked back. Moreover, there were so many disciples in the sect. When everyone gathered together, they would definitely stand on the streets in the previous life, looking back at each other, especially the inner sect disciples. Help your fellow disciples when you are not cultivating, Jun Changshao said. Although there were only 24 spots in the Lingyan Pavilion, he still hoped that the sect disciples could help each other and truly share weal and woe together. Yes. Li Qingyang and the others shouted. Then, the style of the sect of all times suddenly changed. Many of the inner sect disciples took the initiative to help their fellow disciples complete missions or share their martial arts experience. The entire sect exuded an aura that was of a higher level than friendship. 1 month later, the great art of spring and autumn. With the tireless efforts of the sect of all times disciples and Peppa Boar, the construction of Iron Bone Town was finally completed. Jun Changshao, who was on the wide main street, looked at the row upon row of buildings around him and smiled. A little to the left, over there, a little to the right. Li Qingyang stood at the entrance of the town and instructed his junior brothers to hang a plaque with the words Iron Bone Town, in the central area. At this point, a town under the sect of all times was officially established. After everything was done, Li Qingyang's merit points increased from 98 points to 100 points. He had met the requirements to enter the Lingyan Pavilion. Chapter 739. On the day of Iron Bone Town's completion, Li Qingyang's merit points reached 100 points. Of course. All the disciples who participated in the construction also received merit points. Because there were too many people, it was not much to share. Swoosh! Jun Changshao opened the Lingyan Pavilion. The image hanging in the second position flashed, and a confirm button appeared out of thin air. There was a small line of words below. Friendly reminder, once the target is confirmed, it cannot be changed or replaced. Please think twice before you act. Second disciple is sincerely and diligently working hard for the sect. Why should I think twice? Jun Changshao directly pressed the button. Whoosh whoosh. The Lingyan Pavilion suddenly shook slightly. The words that were originally written on it gradually separated and converged into a lifelike portrait of Li Qingyang. There was a table in the portrait. On the table was a blueprint, and beside it were various measuring tools. Li Qingyang maintained his posture of leaning over the table, holding a pen in one hand. His brows were slightly furrowed as if he was thinking. With just a glance, Jun Changshao understood that this was the second disciple working hard for the sect's transformation. The portrait is of him working hard. It's really hard on him. After the portrait was completed, a few lines of words appeared below. Disciple Li Qingyang has successfully entered the Lingyan Pavilion and become one of the 24 meritorious officials. He can share the system's sect functions for the host. Please choose from the following. Operating rights of the Alchemy Pavilion, operating rights of the Casting Pavilion, operating rights of the Talisman Pavilion. P.S. The disciple only has the right to operate. The final benefit belongs to the host. After reading, Jun Changshao stood there in a daze. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, he laughed out loud. He used to think that he had to refine the pills himself. Now that he could give the right to operate the pills to his disciple, wouldn't he have to free his hands and let himself go? The system. It used to say that doing a little work could tire one to death. In the end, the disciple who entered the Lingyan Pavilion could share the burden for the host. Wasn't this a slap in the face? It was over. This guy was going to be arrogant again. Of course, Jun Patriarch felt like he was about to ascend to heaven. With the ability of having a disciple to share the burden, there was no doubt that he had taken another big step toward being a hands-off shopkeeper. Once the Lingyan Pavilion gathered all 24 disciples and arranged all the work, he would have time to talk about love. Thinking of the unrestrained and unrestrained life in the future, Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and covered his face with one hand, laughing uncontrollably. The sect needs a lot of elixirs. Qingyang is a steady person, so he will definitely be in charge. Confirm the right to control the medicinal pill. Ding! Disciple Li Qingyang has obtained the authority to control the pill pavilion, and can automatically match the medicinal ingredients, as well as the quantity to be refined. Li Qingyang, who had just returned to his room and was about to have a good night's rest, suddenly had a dazed look on his face. It was as if his soul had instantly merged into the void. This place is... He was stunned. Who? Suddenly, a large alchemy cauldron appeared, emitting an ancient and desolate aura. Wang! The space trembled again, and a lot of words appeared. They were written: beginner-grade qi-gathering pill, medium-grade qi-gathering pill, beginner-grade body-shaping pill, detoxification pill, martial master pill, martial king pill, and so on. They are all refined by the patriarch. Li Qingyang was stunned. At this moment, Jun Changshao's voice sounded in his ears: Qingyang, you have done your best for the sect, and I am very gratified. Today, I will impart the power of refining elixirs to you. Patriarch. Li Qingyang's face was filled with shock. Jun Changshao said, you have done missions and been to the life and death secret realm, so you naturally know how to use it. In the future, you will be fully responsible for refining the sect's elixirs. Don't let me down. Although he was a little confused, Li Qingyang hurriedly said, yes. This space is opened up from your sea of consciousness, and only you can come in. You only need to be responsible for refining elixirs. Jun Changshao said. Yes. Li Qingyang said. The shock in his heart was very strong. To be able to open up an independent space in his sea of consciousness, and only he could come in, set up a furnace, and a bunch of options that seemed to be used to refine elixirs, it was simply too shocking. Was this the ability of the patriarch? Was this the heritage of an ancient sect? Awesome! Too awesome! Li Qingyang clenched his fist and said with a firm gaze, the patriarch has given me such an important task, so I must do it seriously and not let him down. Sigh. The chief of internal affairs deserved the title. Done. Jun Changshao said. At this moment, the system panel stayed in the alchemy pavilion, and Li Qingyang in his soul form was in front of the furnace. It turned out that it was not an independent space, but he could freely enter and leave the alchemy pavilion in his soul form after passively obtaining the right to control it. The system said, I have analyzed it. Li Qingyang has only obtained the right to refine elixirs in the alchemy pavilion and the right to import herbs. The elixirs he refines will be automatically sent to the host's space ring. What does the right to import herbs mean? It means that the alchemy pavilion has been bound to his space ring, so the herbs inside can be automatically matched with the alchemy pavilion. I see. Jun Changshao understood. To put it bluntly, the right to control the alchemy pavilion was equivalent to turning Li Qingyang into an elixir boy, placing him in the alchemy pavilion and making him responsible for refining elixirs. That's convenient. However, Jun Changshao shook his head and said, it would be perfect if the finished elixirs are sent to his space ring, so I don't have to distribute them to the elixir machine. The system said, if everything is left to the disciple, what's the use of having a patriarch like you? In the alchemy pavilion, the soul-transformed Li Qingyang gradually calmed down and raised his head to look at the various elixirs arranged in a row. On the mission list of the mission pavilion, touch-screen operations had long been implemented, so this was not a rare thing for him. Instead, he clicked on the qi-gathering pill. Just nice. Jun Changxiao's space ring had ready-made herbs, and the number of elixirs refined was displayed on it. Li Qingyang pondered for a while and roughly understood what it meant. He held his chin and said, there were many junior brothers in the previous batch, so the most important thing now is to refine more beginner-grade qi-gathering pills. The alchemy boy was online today. Swoosh. After refining all the herbs that could be refined, Li Qingyang's mind relaxed, and his soul instantly returned to his body. He exclaimed, Patriarch's supreme remarkable power is simply amazing. Huff huff, as soon as he finished speaking, a majestic aura suddenly emerged from his body, and the spirit energy in his dantian was also rolling violently. I'm going to break through. Li Qingyang hurriedly sat down cross-legged and began to use the clear heart art. The power of advancement gushed out like a broken dam, and he smoothly broke through from 4th rank Martial King to 5th rank, 6th rank, 7th rank, and finally, 8th rank. Li Qingyang was dumbstruck when he personally felt the 4 consecutive jumps in his cultivation. Wait a minute. He had a stronger perception of the attributes of heaven and earth. Could it be? Li Qingyang's eyes gradually widened, and he said in disbelief, my spirit root has improved again. Wang. At this moment, he felt a faint pain on the back of his right hand. Thus, he lowered his head and saw a stream of light flickering on his skin. It gradually converged into the word steady, and gradually became transparent. Steady? Li Qingyang was confused. What does that mean? In the study, Jun Changshao was also looking at the panel of the Lingyan pavilion. He saw a large, steady word appear on the portrait of the second disciple, as if it was stamped with a large seal. Steady? Is it referring to Qingyang's steady personality? The system said, after your disciple entered the Lingyan pavilion, his cultivation rose by 4 ranks, and his spirit root also rose from saint rank to divine rank. Divine rank? Jun Changshao was startled at first, then he smiled and said, he deserves it. Chapter 740. Li Qingyang's control of the elixir pavilion was only a benefit of moving into the Lingyan pavilion. The real benefit was that his spirit root was upgraded to divine grade. He was the only one in the sect of all times with a divine grade spirit root. Excluding He Wudi from the upper realm, he was the strongest. Jun Changshao was a little surprised, but he quickly calmed down. In his opinion, his second disciple was rewarded with a higher spirit root because of hard work and effort. In fact, Jun Changshao was very relaxed when it came to spirit root aptitude. After all, he had dual cores and practiced both sword and martial arts. Even if he was given a divine grade spirit root, he might not be able to improve quickly. If he wanted to break through, he could only rely on the system to cheat and obtain more experience talismans through missions. This, Jun Changshao said proudly, this is my way of cultivation. Can't you be a jade lotus? The system asked. What does stable mean? Jun Changshao began to think. Could it be a code name for all the disciples who move in? Let's assume he was right. Xiao Ziji, who focused on tempering the body, represented defense. Yi Xingchen, who had a bad temper, represented merit. In this case, his two disciples were good at both offense and defense. They would definitely be two fierce generals in the Lingyan Pavilion. Don't think about it, don't think about it. Jun Changshao shook his head and called Li Qingyang over. Ironbone Town has been built. Go to Qingyang village and inform the villagers to choose a date to move. Yes. Li Qingyang hurriedly got to work. Being appointed to refine pills made his blood boil even more. The next day, the villagers of Qingyang village brought their luggage and moved into the newly built Ironbone Town. Everyone was given a big house. Aunt Wang. Jun Changshao personally handed over the permanent residence certificate and said with a smile, from today onwards, this big house is yours. Remember, don't be like Dachuan and rush to sell the house when the price of the house rises slightly. Otherwise, you won't even have a place to cry. Dachuan? Who was that? Auntie Wang took it and said with a smile, child, you've grown up. You've become successful. I told you that if Gosheng becomes successful in the future, he won't forget us. An old man with a walking stick said with a smile. A man in his 40s or 50s grinned and said, when Gosheng was young, he would often go to the vegetable fields to take a dump. He would dig a hole and wait for others to step on it. I could tell that he would become someone great in the future. I get angry whenever this matter is brought up. Back then, I stepped on it a lot. Ha ha ha. The villagers gathered together and laughed. Jun Changshao had already gotten used to the nickname Gosheng and said, without you guys, I would have starved to death a long time ago, and I wouldn't have achieved what I have today. After absorbing the memories of the original owner, he found out that because his parents had died when he was young, he grew up in Qingyang village and relied on Aunt Wang to help him financially. Knowing how to repay kindness. Therefore, Jun Changshao treated these simple villagers as his family. He did not ask for any compensation and provided them with a better living environment. Aunt Wang. Your craftsmanship is not bad. Why don't you open a restaurant? This town is bigger than Qingyang village. The rent must be expensive. Aunt doesn't have the money. It's free of charge. I will renovate it. You just need to run it. This, Aunt Wang could not refuse and could only agree. Patriarch. Just when Jun Patriarch was talking with the villagers, Li Luoqiu walked over and whispered, Master AI is here. Yes. Jun Changshao smiled and said, Aunt Wang, you guys talk. I have something to deal with here. I will leave first. Go, go. Aunt Wang said, business is more important. After watching Jun Changshao leave, she shook her head and said, Gosheng has a successful career now. He is not young anymore. What should we do if he doesn't have a wife? Sigh, when that guy was young, he went up a tree to get bird eggs and fell down. That place just happened to hit a rock. I am worried that there might be a problem. Jun Changshao, who did not have a cultivation base, could not hear the villagers' discussion. However, Li Luoqiu, who was following behind him, heard it. Her pretty face changed slightly, and she looked at the patriarch with a strange expression. What's wrong? No, nothing. There was a mansion in the center of Ironbone Town. There were no guns in it, and no one would jump down and become a box spirit. It was specially prepared by Li Qingyang for the patriarch. Jun Changshao walked into the hall. He first signaled Ai Shang to not stand up, and then sat at the head of the table. Although he was usually a little naughty, when he was serious, he still looked like the patriarch. Master Ai. Jun Changshao put his 10 fingers on his thigh and smiled. You came here this time to open a branch in the town? Yes. Ai Shang said. he had already received the news that the Sect of All Times was building a town. This time, he came hoping to open the AI family's medicine store, auction house, and other businesses in the town. The AI family had an unwritten rule that their businesses could not be located in the town or the countryside. After all, the purchasing power of a small place could not be compared to a city. However, this time, they chose to extend their businesses to the newly built Ironbone town because they thought that as the Sect of All Times became more famous and stronger, the town would definitely become more prosperous. This came from the businessmen's sharp foresight. Jun Changshao said, "Since Master AI is willing to open a branch here, I naturally welcome it. However, you can only open a medicine store and an auction house." "Thank you." Master AI leaned forward and said, "Jun Patriarch, I have already thought about it. The monthly pill auction will be held here to boost the town's popularity." "This is not bad," Jun Changshao said. Ironbone Town had just been built, and many stores were empty. AI Shang came first, so he chose the two biggest items in the center and left happily. Not only did the villagers of Green Sun Village live in Ironbone Town, many Sect of All Times disciples' parents also brought their families and made arrangements. "Father, Mother." Su Xiaoma stood in front of the courtyard with a bright smile on his face. Little Mo, the two elders walked out of the central room and saw their son, who they had only seen once on the screen, and immediately burst into tears. "Jun Patriarch." The two of them knelt down and bowed, saying, "Our son has troubled you. Please don't." Jun Changshao hurriedly went up the mountain and stopped them, saying, "I want to thank you for sending our son to the Sect of All Times without worry. Little Mo, it's rare for you to be reunited with your parents. I will give you 2 days off to accompany them." "Yes," Su Xiaoma said at the top of his voice. With the arrival of the parents and relatives of the Sect disciples, the originally deserted town became lively and lively. It also became more humane. Jun Changshao lay alone on the roof of the mansion, watching the disciples bring their families to play on the streets, and his heart was filled with mixed feelings. "I'm all alone on earth, and all alone in the other world. Why am I so pitiful?" He shook his head, saying, "Or maybe the parents of this body are not ordinary people. Maybe they are not dead, and I'm actually hiding an extremely powerful identity." The system said, "Host, this idea is very dangerous." "Patriarch." At this moment, Li Qingyang said telepathically, "Tai Xianshengzong is here to visit." "Tai Xianshengzong?" Jun Changshao said, "I think it's a first-rate sect." "Yes." The system said, "In terms of strength, it's stronger than the Taishian Holy Sect and Tiangang Holy Sect that we met at the Dragon Tiger battle for supremacy." Shua. Jun Changshao stood up and snapped his fingers, saying, "Xiao Maxian, return to the sect." "Yes, Master." The human form of Xiao Maxian jumped over barefoot. Then, she grabbed his shoulder and threw him up, saying, "Let's go." Xiao Jun Changshao flew up the mountain like a cannonball. His face that was facing the wind completely collapsed. "What the hell is this?" You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.